Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Well, the big weekend of V8SCOPS at the Mountain continues with the support series this afternoon as we head then towards qualifying for the big race and the big race tomorrow. Panorama, such a beloved track, creating great racing in a whole variety of cars, not least our favorite V8s. So to kick things off, it's the 2-litre Tourers. And they've got a series of sprint races this afternoon on the mountain as we keep our big weekend of coverage rolling. David Haynes here with Scott Rankin at Mount Panorama.
Yeah, so it's been a fair while since I've seen some TCR action as well. These are quite a popular category, obviously, right the world over. And indeed, there was a round in Sandown 2 weeks ago that I was actually able to go down and have a look at the back end of the cars. Bailey Sweeney and iRacer was actually a part of that one and was just having a look around at the cars and everything going on in the back end of those garages. But I mean, this is it, isn't it? This is the real life race, real life cars taken to a racetrack and worked all the way up, and then you bring them to Bathurst as well. I'm sure these will be part of the support categories at some point. You look at it. You look at the mountain, you look at how it lays out, and the differences between this car and most of the other cars that you would see getting around Bathurst are immense. You pick up the throttle, you're running wide because it's a front-wheel drive car, so the driving strategy is going to be so different around here.
What do we need to tell you about Mount Panorama that you don't already know? 6,200 very, very famous meters, a massive amount of elevation change. Fully committed corners, walls are so close across the top of the mountain, the big stop and braking zone at the chase where a lot of overtaking can happen, because these cars and many others will slipstream very strongly down Conrod Straight and present overtaking opportunities in that part of the track. It says 23 corners, and a lot of them you don't know by number, you know by name, you know by the highlight clips you've seen over the years and all of the great action they've given us for decades and decades of history around this famous place.
One of the big things that'll change for the TCRs here tonight, and really interesting to watch, is how much rear brake bias that they add to the car. For most of the cars, you'll be running it down into the low 40%. It's very similar to a Porsche Cup number. The difference between this and a Porsche Cup, though, engines are in the front, so there's no weight over those rear tires. The reason for that is you will cook a set of rear tires. 20-minute races coming our way, but that's still long enough if you're dialing in that front brake bias to kill those front tires. The other thing is you want to really trail brake the car into the corners. It'll save some of that front tire, moves the heat towards the rear end of the car, helps the car tip in a little bit better. The out-and-out braking performance will be a little bit less if you run more rear bias, but you get the benefits of being able to trail brake. It's a tricky combo, and to be perfectly honest, it's for the drivers that do get in and have a go, it rewards them with a unique set of skills that they're just not going to get anywhere else.
Yep, let's look at what the racing is going to look like. They're just starting to kick off qualifying now too. Very exciting 20-minute races there with the reverse grid. And that will certainly mean that passing and where you can pass, how you can pass, how quickly you can cut your way through the field is going to be critical for our front runners around here. Certainly a couple of places you can pass, and some places will be very difficult to do so. Qualifying now done. We can lock in the starting grid. James Foster's on the pole. Damon Mulqueen just behind him by 3/10 there for the front row. Row number 2 has Tyson Hanma and Simon Mizomo. And Simon Gorowski, the only other driver with a qualifying time there. And you can see we do have a couple of the different makes of car on offer as well.
Yeah, so I believe the bulk of the field are in the Hyundai Elantra, and I think we've got one of the Hondas out there as well. So the differences, I was going to say the differences, there is another Hyundai that's actually available, which is the Veloster. That is very much hatched. The rear wing of that is attached to the basically to where the boot opens up from at the top end of the hatch. Whereas the Elantra itself is got a normal regulation, sort of more sedan style boot. And the rear wing is down where you would expect to see it on most makes and models of car, as opposed to being up on the hatch section. We don't have, obviously, the Veloster for that comparison, but in the end, you will actually get to see all 6 of these guys out here. So it'll be 5 Hyundai Elantras and one of the Honda.
6 drivers on the grid there, because the one driver without a qualifying time was Isaac Edwards. Clock will tick down here. One thing that always baffles me about the Veloster is it's got 1 driver's door, 2 passenger doors, but in right-hand drive versus left-hand drive markets, it's the opposite way around. So they've doubled up their manufacturing to have to engineer it the reverse way around for different markets, depending on 10-second sign being shown to the drivers before they get this first race underway. 20 minutes should give us 9 or 10 laps of the mountain, maybe only 8, depending on. But the lights come on now. We'll see what the lap times look like, how many they squeeze into 20 minutes of action-packed 2-litre touring car racing. Revs rise as they get away, and of course your pole sitter with a little bit of an advantage there. Great jump from James Foster. You've got some launch aids in these cars to help you get away from a standing start, but everyone in the Hyundai has the same, and it's a good opening first corner there for Gorowski in the only Honda as they then lead up Mountain Straight.
Yeah, it's really, really difficult to get these cars off of the line. You want to slip the clutch to about 40 to 45%, and then just hold it as you get the car up to speed. And once you're sure that the engine won't bog down, that's when you release it. Mez is actually not aware of that, hasn't jumped into a TCR for a very, very long time, and that's why you see him losing spots from that start. The other big thing about these guys, they struggle in terms of cold tires. Remember, all the traction going through those front tires, as well as the turning inputs. So they are going to struggle for front tire temperature. And this first lap is incredibly sketchy. Watch some rear ends dance around in these in the TCRs.
So the race is on at the front, and the race is on in 4th place there with Gorowski needing to cover off Mizomo and Isaac Edwards, who are all over him as we come across the top of the mountain for the first time. You can see Mez not off to a great start, not quite the qualifying he might have expected, but he's oh so racy at the moment as they head towards Skyline. Foster still leading, but Mulqueen from New Zealand not going to let him get away with this one, and they're starting to gap Tyson Hanma just a little bit. You want to stay within 1 second over the top of the mountain here so that you're close when you get to Conrod Straight.
Yeah, and the big thing here is that Mizomo is actually in behind Gorowski, and there's 1.5 seconds worth of gap that's sort of built in between 3rd place and 4th place. So he's not going to be benefiting from the slipstream, and he's got to get this pass done. He's definitely got more pace than Gorowski, but Gorowski's got more experience on the cold tires and bringing this thing into temperature. So Mez has got a little bit of work to do to certainly grab a couple spots, and in the meantime, Foster's got control.
So it was 7/10 when they came out of the elbow onto Conrod Straight. The lead gap just now half a second as Foster leads them into the chase as well. So only cutting down about 2/10 or so there. Might need to get closer to be able to get more of a slipstream and a better chance to attack there. And then, of course, also the gearing can come into it a little bit on a long straight like that. Some of these cars will actually begin to hit the rev limiter in top gear if you're not careful. The Audi RS3 was very well known for that. The other models have got different and sometimes slightly smarter gearing than that. First lap complete, and it's a 2:21, so we'll keep you updated on how many laps we think this race will go to, but it is a timed 20-minute race.
Yeah, but look at the difference in the lap times. Is not only from the standing start, but also those cold tyres. They've got the responsibility to now try and bring them in. And for Mulqueen, he's sitting there. He's going to start to fill the mirror of James Foster. But, you know, benefits slower speeds means that dirty air isn't as much of an impact. And with the raw lack of aerodynamic devices around these cars as well, it means he's going to be able to follow a lot closer than some of the other categories we're going to see here. The benefit, though, of that draft is not as pronounced, not the high speeds, but with smaller engines, you know, that's where they really make that game. Just keep your eyes on how these guys dance the cars into the braking zone. Just looking at them, I'd say probably these guys in towards the middle and rear of the pack, they've got to be more comfortable with a rearward bias, and they're struggling to get the car to sort of initially tip into the corner. That's where that rearward bias would help. So I would say to those guys, they've probably got a little bit too much front bias in the car.
Across the top of the mountain, Mulqueen not letting your race leader James Foster get away. We're looking backwards from his rear wing. That's that trademark little bit of air at the dipper, and then continuing sharply downhill, which you notice very much from this angle. Sometimes you struggle to find a good angle of Bathurst that shows you how much elevation change there is. Foster gets his Elantra right up to the apex there at the elbow. Mulqueen pushing out a little bit wider, delays his throttle coming out of the corner, but he still remains within the slipstream of the leader in this opening race. And we got a move on. How's the straight line speed difference between the Honda and the Elantra as Mazomo gets his nose ahead of Gorowski, heading down towards the chase? Which side of the road do you want to be on here? Inside of the kink, but the outside at the main braking zone at the main part of the corner. And there's just a little bit of contact there, but I think Mez will take this fourth place away.
Yeah, that all kicked off just because Gorowski missed the apex all the way back at the elbow by quite a large margin. He was probably 2-3 feet off of where he should have been pinching the car, and it was quite an early tip in for him. Didn't quite get the late apex. Really want to straight line the acceleration zone in these cars. Not necessarily because you're trying to prevent wheel spin, but because the latter phases of the corner. He's giving him a rough up there too. Yeah, the latter phases of the corner you want a straight line, because as soon as you pick up that throttle, you're going to run wide. So Mez is under assault here now.
Big difference in braking points in towards turn one there, and also a better run up the hill from Gorowski. The Honda's going to try to fight back. Once again, we see them in a Japan versus Korea drag race, but it's that inside for Griffin's Bend where you want to be, where the camber of the road is, up against the curb on the inside, around the outside though, somehow miraculously finding some grip that's not normally there, and the Honda of Gorowski goes back ahead. It's Simon versus Simon for fourth and fifth. Simon says Honda goes in front.
Yeah, Mez will be a little bit disappointed to know that he's losing that Simon battle, but the battle up at the front's closed up a little bit as well. So once these tires start to come up to temperature, this is where that frontward bias, yeah, sure, your braking performance up until this point is quite good. And generally what will happen with the TCRs as well is you actually start, let's say if you're going to run your average brake bias in these cars is sort of a 43%. That's where you're going to settle in for your race pace. For the first lap, you'll be at 46%. The start of lap 2, you'll back it down to about 44.5. Lap 3, you'll get back to 43%. Gorowski's nearly in the fence at the dipper.
Oh, he's got big problems at Skyline. He's gone wide, probably used up some of that runoff. I don't see any hint of damage, and Mazomo's still behind him, but probably a big heart-in-mouth moment. You see how it brings Isaac Edwards back into this fight as well, and once again, a drag race down Conrod Straight. Mazomo's going to look to have to get ahead, but here's what happened for the Honda. It just gets so taily. He's carrying too much speed in, and he does just kiss that concrete, but makes good use of how grippy the grass has become there.
Yeah, he rescued
Speedway
that, man.
berm.
That was well done, because, you know, most days of the week, that's an incident, you know. And have a look at how much he's squeezing Mez. He's really desperate to try and hang on to this position. It is a slight lift in these cars at the kink. You can't necessarily fully take it full throttle. It's just a barest of lifts just to make sure that there's some security in the front end of that car. Mez is using everything to get by right now. This is holding his race up. He wants to get down there. They're about, 7 seconds back off the next car up the road. He'd like to start eating into that.
Yeah, Tyson Hanma in that slight no man's land just away from the race leading battle, but still significantly ahead of what's happening here between Gorowski, Mazomo and Edwards. I do like a good little World Rally throwback livery there that's going on in 6th place at the moment in the double slipstream up the hill. Mazomo's got 2 kilometers an hour more, but then as they come across the crest there, it begins to equalize. So the Honda pulling pretty well at the end of the straights, it seems. This is the lead battle, 12 minutes to go, 6 laps by my count here, still underneath a second, sitting at half a second at the moment, as the tyres continue to heat up and the track continues to heat up. The in-session time, 20 minutes to midday, probably start to smell those barbecues under the gazebos starting to fire up across the top of the mountain, but the track is also heating up.
Starting to fire up. I think a few of them are already done. I think a few of those guys up the top have got a snag and bread.
To be honest, I think I keep mine going from breakfast.
I'm not surprised. You'd wander around a few places up there. The smell of cooking meats at this time of day is just, it's basically just synonymous with the top of the mountain. This time by Gorowski's a little bit more settled across the top, but Foster is really, really quick right across the top. I'm starting to wonder whether or not Mez is carrying just that little bit extra of rear wing angle, and I think he'll regret it when they go for race number 2. He might actually take some out of that, just on the basis that he's going nowhere in terms of a straight line. It's really safe, it's really secure across the top, and it does generate the better lap time, particularly in these cars. But the problem is, if he can't advance his position, he's locked in. We've seen it, that development in setups over say the last 5 years when everyone started running Bathurst. It was all about first off, it was about peak lap speed, which was all heavy downforce across the top. Then somebody realized that they could just breeze past 3 cars on the straight at a time and then hold them off across the top. So that trended back towards the low wing angles, and I think we're starting to trend back in the other direction now as well.
Yeah, I can see the speed trap speeds that it's got 251 for Mazomo, it's got 251 for Mulqueen, and 252 for Isaac Edwards. So he's got the double toe, but he might also have the car sitting a little flatter with less rake and a little less rear wing angle. 2 things that could contribute to how much drag you've got on these 2 long straights up the hill, up the mountain where they are right now, and also down Conrod Straight. And this is seeing there's sort of 2 car lengths there, and it's not really closing. This is the point where that Hyundai just seems to run out of too much more puff. Gets down to about 1 car length as they get to the braking zone, and Mazomo looks like he likes to point the nose in earlier, and Gorowski flicking the car in with good front bite later.
Yeah, peak lap times for these guys, by the way, 2:21.5 for Simon Gorowski, 2:20.7 for Mez. So Mez has definitely got 0.8 of a second on him. But yeah, again, it's just sort of getting by. So he'll be ruining that start from the first race, from this race where he dropped all of those spots. So that'll be his goal for the next race. The benefit though now is that he will, if he finishes here, he'll be starting ahead. Remember that reverse grid race, Dave. So, and with 6 cars, it will be a full invert of every driver. But Mulqueen's starting to come back as well. So it'll be interesting to see who's gone further with the bias towards the rear. 20 minutes is about the point where the tyre wear starts to kick in. So on that last lap, you might see a little bit of a difference, but if they've been saving their tyres, you shouldn't see any results of that excess front bias.
So play around with starting pressures and stuff like that you might see start to create a little bit of a swing, 1 car to another at this point in the race. Queen's got it back within 1 second, but I haven't seen any time where he's really been close enough to make Foster force to defend or anything like that. Unlike right here where the battling has been and where it's been oh so fierce. Mez likes to look to throw one down the inside here, and this time he will. He gets alongside with the inside, and he barges across the curb off the track. The redress doesn't cause anything, but my goodness, it reminded me of that oh so much.
Well, I was just looking at that and going from Gorowski's point of view, you know, he knew that Mez was off the circuit. He knew that the natural line is going to trend him back across the kink at 22. So I'm really curious. There's no gain for him to pinch him off. And in actual fact, there's a lot of risk by him coming back across the corner and holding Mez outside the circuit.
Well, Gorowski ends up in front. Mazomo remains behind despite the ambition just shown there. In fact, he's got Isaac Edwards closing up within a car length, within 2 of him, who seems to have a lot of straight line speed, and you can see just a tiny bit of damage, tiny bit of scuffing to Mazomo's car, but it doesn't seem to have lost any great deal of straight line speed out of it. So if the tyres are a bit nasty, he's going to try to clean them off, but he's now dropped the slipstream to the only Honda Civic in the race, making the closest battling margin back up front here, where Mulqueen seems like he goes well up the hill through the areas like the cutting.
Yeah, yep. So again, same thing. I'm tipping that he'll probably have a little bit more of that downforce on, and probably just a little bit of better turn in. Might be running a little bit extra toe just to assist with that. But the outright straight line speed from James Foster has just been phenomenal, and that's where he's been really gaining all of his time. He's untouchable, so much so to a point down the straight that even if Mulqueen can get to his rear bumper right here and the exit out onto Forest Elbow, I just don't think he's getting the pass done.
Here go the gears. Fourth, up into fifth, and then at some point, probably, a little earlier than the crest of the hill there, up into sixth. So then we'll see with Slipstream, do you get close to topping out the gearing in the Elantra? Again, the Audi, really well known for it. You're starting to get close there to just running out of gear. You've got a rev limiter at the top of sixth gear there, and you're getting mighty close to it.
Yeah, so even though we've got no Audis in this race, the Audis actually have a slightly shorter gearing ratio, you're right. But one of the biggest benefits of that car is the drive off of the corners. That first sort of 15 meters off of a corner, they just shoot off, whereas no one's running that Audi. The biggest issue that the Audis have is that they don't handle the curbs quite so well. And I think that's why a lot of these guys are staying away. The Elantra and the Veloster are generally the two better mid-rangey cars, and then it's that Honda that's just got that raw straight line performance, whereas the two Hyundais quite reasonable in all areas. They don't really have a weak area, but they don't have any out-and-out excellent ones either.
Fastest lap just set by James Foster at a 2:18.3. Not bad for how close they are to a road car with a 2-litre engine.
Thinking they're only, 15 seconds off a V8 supercar around here? That's pretty good.
In race pace, maybe closer to 10, depending on the length of the stints and all that. I think your long stint race pace and your sprint race pace are a lot closer in this car than in something heavier that'll chew through its tyres a bit quicker. It'll chew through its rear tyres a lot quicker than one of these.
Yeah, you're not wrong. So the way that you're supposed to drive them with that rearward bias is that I liken them back when I first started racing these cars to a motocross bike. You tip the car in with the rear in the same way that you would find somebody locking up the rear brakes on a motorbike to get that initial turn in, then they get back on the throttle once the bike's sort of turned. It's a lot the same, and because of the shorter wheelbase on these cars as well, they're quite happy to sort of dance a little bit. Longer braking zones generally tends to create better racing, but like we said, you just haven't got the cars close enough together at the moment to really allow for that. Bathurst isn't a great track for these cars for going racing in terms of the sim racing capabilities. They don't wiggle around on the tyre quite enough here at Bathurst. Effectively, there's only you sort of have to surprise someone to get a move done anywhere but Griffins and the Chase, basically. And you really got to throw it on them exceptionally late and have them make a mistake, basically, to set that up. And generally, when you, particularly, I've made contact with a lot of drivers over the years down at turn one when I've found that hole, I found that opening. There is only one line actually at Hell Corner for these cars. If you try and go too wide, somebody's running off the road.
Underneath 4 minutes on the clock means it'll be 2 more laps to go. Last lap board next time in race number 1. So the 2-litre tour is part of the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 weekend here on SimSpeed TV. Yeah, just underneath 1 second. Here's Tyson Hanmer. His pace has been good, but he's just been that sort of couple tenths a second per lap off first and second. And once he got dropped out of that 1 second out of that slipstream, he's been running along here in third. After Mazzomo went off the road at the Chase, he still remains behind Gorofsky, but he's getting a little bit closer. 3/10 quicker last lap. Only needs to find a little bit more, and we could have a juicy little repeat on the last lap.
He's had another 3/10 actually in Sector 1, by the way, on Mazzomo this lap. So I would say Gorofsky's actually made a mistake down at Hell Corner, probably run a little bit wide, hasn't picked up the throttle quite as early, and he's made a ton of time in a straight line. Or alternatively, it was actually the last corner. I think it might have been Murray's, just because he's dropped 3/10 in the Murray's sector of the race, and he's dropped 3/10 in the first sector. So unless he's made 2 separate mistakes, this will show.
A lot of curb on the way in, and it doesn't go all the way out. So I think he doesn't track out carrying the speed like you'd like you'd normally expect. That's not the theoretically most optimal line there, using too much road in one place and not enough elsewhere.
That's actually quite okay line. You're 100% right. Should have floated out. But for a TCR, that's about the line that you definitely really want to pick up the inside curb, and then whereas you wouldn't necessarily touch it in other categories. With these things, you need to use all of the actual road available to you. It allows you to pick up the throttle a little bit earlier. So I'm not too upset with the inside line, but like you said, it's also that dance on the way in. So he's either lost some speed there, hasn't quite picked up the throttle, but then there's also another mistake somewhere that not accounting for. So from Gorowski across the top last lap, he actually made a little bit more time on Mez. This lap by Mez has been just about even with him. So this is going to give him an option when we get down here this next lap. If he can take another 0.2, 1/10 sort of out of the car ahead, he's back in that tow and he'll have an option on this last lap.
Gap between the leaders, 1.4 seconds. Gap between Gorowski and Mizomo, about 1.4 seconds as well, as they're about to start the final lap of this race. And in fact, James Foster already has, with Mulqueen in his mirrors, but not so much in his slipstream. You see third place just line up to fire up Mountain Straight as well. What moves can be made on the final lap here? I suspect fourth and fifth a little more likely, with maybe pressure on Gorowski than Foster, who's so far looked entirely unflappable.
He's just eked that margin out now. He's just been consistent. I'd say Mulqueen's tried to go, well, if I'm going to get this guy, I've got to push somewhere. He's made that mistake, dropped out of the slipstream, and unfortunately that's all she wrote. Now for Foster, it's just a nice and easy, no mistake lap, and it's all done.
Over the top of the hill, not needing to use too much of the curb there, but you start to get a little more committed through here. Just got to play with the throttle a little bit, get the rotation right. And then we've seen across Skyline, braking, turning with the rear of the car a little light off throttle. It nearly caught out Gorowski with a big incident that he just was lucky to get away with in this part of the track.
It's really interesting. We might have to take it on board up and across the top of the mountain in one of these cars in race number 2, just from the perspective of listening to the throttle, listening to what the driver's actually doing. It is exceptionally different. To everyone that's ever driven a rear-wheel drive race car, you know what to expect, right? You pick up the throttle, the rear wants to rotate. Well, it's completely the opposite in this thing. You've got to do all your turning basically on your braking and before you really pick that car in. You can pick up the throttle a little bit and stabilize it, and that's okay. But then, before you can really stab and get back to 100% throttle, you've basically got to have your turning done. It's a driving style all on its own, and there's nothing else quite like it. And it really teaches you the essence of why are we trail braking? What do we gain by trail braking? Because if you can't trail brake correctly in these cars, you'll have absolutely no pace. And, well, James Foster's got pace, so.
He absolutely does. He comes out of the final corner and he doesn't use all the road because he's ready to celebrate, taking the first win of the day at Mount Panorama from Damon Mulqueen and Tyson Hanma. Gorowski and Mizomo are going to be behind that, but Isaac Edwards had a bit of a moment right at that part of the track. Okay, I guess we paid for the whole road. We're going to use the whole road there. Unconventional line that would have had his heart in his mouth, but he'll see this race out, and with the reverse grid coming for the next race, he'll be on pole position when we get to race number 2 momentarily. Everyone sees out the race with every panel still attached to their 2-litre front-wheel drive touring cars, and we'll look at those results. James Foster, Damon Mulqueen, Tyson Hanma, Simon Gorowski, Simon Mizomo, and Isaac Edwards. The only change from the grid position there, Simon Gorowski and Mizomo battling it back and forth there. Mizomo dropping a spot after his start, and then his off-track excursions. So they line up ready for race number 2, and as you can see, Edwards now on the pole position from Simon Mizomo, Simon Gorowski, Tyson Hanma, Damon Mulqueen, and James Foster starting back in 6th there. This is the race, the 20-minute race that could really challenge him.
Have a look at the heat haze too here, Dave. Like, look at the raw temperature just oozing off the pavement. We're now into the middle of the day. It's going to be a long one for these drivers. Those tires will heat up a little bit quicker, but then they'll fade away towards the back end of the race, particularly if this temperature continues to climb. And given the fact that we're only just before midday, in sim. And there's going to be a fair bit to go, and we'll see who gets the start this time by.
Green flag waves, lights go out, a little bit of wheel spin there from Mazomo, everyone else a little more planted, and he is getting swallowed up. They all go around the outside of him. Edwards looking to defend the inside of one. Gorowski going around the outside, still cold tires for the Honda Civic, and that doesn't look like it works out for him. Hanma starting middle of the pack, hoping to get a really good start, and they're all in a line. 6 cars in 6 car lengths heading up Mountain Straight for the first time. This for the race lead. Tyson Hanma gets to the inside of Isaac Edwards. Now they're level side by side for the race lead. Gorowski in 3rd, trying to hold off Foster, who's already made his way up into 4th. Mazomo back into 6th with that wheel spin off the line, but Hanma, cold tyres, out wide. The Campbell working against him in turn number 2. Now he drops all the way to the tail of the field. From the tail of the field to 4th, back to the tail of the field for him in just 2 corners, opening this one up. Now the inside line at the cutting working so well for Gorowski as he gets level with Isaac Edwards, and then as the track goes right, he ends up in the wrong place. Mulqueen takes that spot away from him to get up into 3rd and almost in the wall for the Civic. First time coming across the top of the hill in this race number 2. They're back on cold tyres, and it is showing. These cars are moving around and not behaving how they were at the end of race number 2. Opportunistic Jordan Cox look there from James Foster, but that does nothing for him. Tyson Hanma now in the lead with Edwards as a little bit of an accidental rear gunner here. Hanma's getting out to an almost 2-second lead.
Oh!
This is his opportunity, but Edwards is in the wall at the end of the dipper.
Yeah, I'm interested to see whether he got contact. That was definitely contact with Gorowski, and Gorowski's in deep as well. He got elbowed wide, and now Gorowski's going to grab the barrier. Mez brushes against it, but that was a significant hit for Gorowski, and now Mulqueen's got through on a lot of them, but he's 2 seconds behind our race leader at this point in time. Is this the chance that Tyson Hanma needed? He's going to have to run, and run quickly, and this time Mazomo's going to get up and alongside Gorowski.
Yep, here comes Mazomo. James Foster still in 5th, not able to make as much progress as he wants. Oh, it's game on once again between Gorowski and Mazomo. And Gorowski's going to show Mazomo the thrust once again. James Foster will try to grab the both of them, and I think he will. Great positioning from him.
And Isaac Edwards had to take avoiding action in the background, although I think he's on the way to pit lane anyway, so that's actually not too bad. I thought for a second there Mez just couldn't pull the car up as he was trying to rejoin it. I'm surprised Mez hasn't called that one in for race control, because there was no room there. So this will show what's happened to Edwards, is that he picks up the curb. No, he's out of position here at the dipper. Then it's the inside barrier. Then it's the outside barrier. So he's tried to maintain momentum. Remember what I said about picking up that throttle too early? That's exactly what he's done there.
The old ping pong, very easy to find a second barrier once you've found the first one, and then they all saw the trouble he was in, wanted to get past him in a hurry, and that led to a little bit more contact, and you just saw the replay there for Gorowski. I'm surprised that thing's in as good shape as it is based on the size of that hit.
Yeah, that was a sizable hit. I get the feeling he might have had the steering wheel straight. If he has, then he might be okay. But for me, like, Gorowski left no room. They were significantly alongside when they went through the chase, and there was no room given by Gorowski. That for me would be a slam dunk penalty. I haven't heard anything though yet, so I don't know whether or not it's going to get reviewed.
There might be just a little bit of settle it on the track. Is it karma? Is it not? We'll find out. Gorowski continues racing. Edwards is on the pit lane for the damage that he sustained. Certainly he had a little bit of contact both with the wall, with other cars, and then with the wall again. So Hanma's lead that he got away to with all of that action that happened behind him on the opening lap, he almost had a 3-second lead. It's starting to evaporate him quickly. Mulqueen's back within 1 second. Foster working his way up into 3rd, as we saw at the chase. Now he's got a different kind of chase on his hands, because it's 2 seconds to Mulqueen and then 1 second from there to the lead. This is your top 3 heading down Conrod Straight.
It'll be interesting to see what Hammer's approach to this one is. He might actually just let them go, let Mulqueen go, and then use him to draft and pull himself along. Because if he can actually work with Mulqueen, there's a second place in the begging. If he fights for this, he's very, very likely to slip back to 3rd place. Yes, there'll be some opportunity, but remember, he's the weaker of the 3 drivers. So using your head in this situation and accepting potentially a better chance at a 2nd place finish might be the way to go.
Let's have a look then at this once more. Gorowski's on the inside. Mazomo maybe is he trying to drive into a wedge that was kind of already closing there, perhaps? But Foster, he's the most heads up of all of them. He goes over under, passes 2 drivers at once to get himself up into 3rd, and he will soon be closing in on what could be quite an interesting lead battle. Hanma showed consistency, if not pace, in race number 1. Now he's got to show both consistency and a little more racecraft.
I'm really curious to see what he does. But yeah, for me, looking back at that Mazomo incident, I just, they weren't getting through the corner too wide, and at the point of turn in, they were definitely far enough alongside. So I don't know. That's a curious one for me. And I haven't heard a single scrap. Don't think it's being investigated whatsoever. So that one will just play out. The thing for me though about it is in terms of racecraft. I mean, why? Why run that deep down and into the corner? You're trying to hold up Foster behind and potentially nick a spot off of him and create some opportunity that way, and you've cost yourself everything.
Here we are with one of the angles I think you requested over the top of the hill here. Also keeping an eye on the speed as it ebbs and flows to those quick sections of the track. Over the hill, we get just a little bit wobbly.
But you've got to be, Dave. You've got to be a little bit out of control in these cars to actually have any pace in them. So because the car was dancing around, that actually enables him a little bit more turn in when he requires it. It's trying to keep it in a straight line, trying to keep the rear underneath you down the hill. But once you get to the point where you want that car to turn in, you've got more turn in. And, you know, unfortunately, it's a little bit more unstable in the braking zone, but it's a lot quicker when you get to the corner.
Once again, Elantra versus Elantra. Down Conrod Straight, and you see it closes up just a little bit, but they're only sort of 2 kilometers an hour difference there. Gap not closing as significantly as we might expect it to do in some of the other categories of racing that are coming later today and this weekend. But Hanma feels the need to defend already, or at least shows that he's willing to before coming back across onto the racing line and to complete another lap.
Have a look at Mulqueen though. He's setting this up. He's using his brain. He's going, if I go for a move here, I'm costing us both momentum. I'm going to back us both into Foster and give him the opportunity. He gets a double draft. He breezes past both of us, and Foster's proved his straight line capabilities at this point in time. Waits for Mountain Straight, gives himself an opportunity. If he can get this job done, yeah, Hanma's not working with him. Forget that. That's all changed.
Of note for Mulqueen, though, is he might want to get this done. In fact, he definitely wants to get this done before Foster arrives, and maybe hope he can play Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, George Russell with him to keep the quickest driver of James Foster behind him. So it very quickly becomes, you know, do or die in this for Mulqueen if he's looking for a race win, because if he doesn't get by soon and he's all over the rear bumper coming up the hill here in a place that he can't pass easily, he's going to get it done soon. James Foster will close in and make it even more difficult for Daniel Mulqueen.
So Foster took 0.3 of a second out of Mulqueen on that most recent lap, but Mulqueen's a lot closer. So having a look at the setup, having a look at the way that the cars take it across the top, Mulqueen may not, he's definitely got more downforce than the other cars, but for me, he's got a setup that's turning into the corner a lot better. When he comes off that brake and as he's transitioning into the corner, that's where all his time gain is. If you had a look at the chase last lap, he made a lot of time as he sort of released the brake, tipped the car in. Hanma was on the brakes for a lot longer and couldn't get back to the throttle. Whereas Mulqueen, that's where all of his time gain is. The problem for Mulqueen is, whilst that setup and whilst that style of setup, that's absolutely what you want in terms of raw outright lap-to-lap pace, that will never get you an overtake done in these cars at the mountain.
4/10 and closing, but we've seen before you've got to be a lot closer to make the pass at the end of the straight and into the chase here. Although those gaps, they really do look to close up in the braking zones. And Makar does look quick in a straight line. Mulqueen quicker where the corners are, but you can't pass where the corners are at the moment. And Foster, he's almost there within that 1 second, looming closer. At the halfway point of this race right now, 10 minutes still left on the clock. That means 4 laps done, 5 still to go though.
Can you hear the Jaws music queued up in the background? Can you feel the approach? Can you feel the risk level that's about to go up? And Mole Queen's got to get it done. And for me, I think it's going to have to be the cutting. It's either going to be turn 1 or it's got to be the cutting. Those or potentially at the chase. But for him to get it done at the chase, he's got to be at the rear bumper of Hanma, heading over the kink, and he's got to be alongside of him right before they get into the chase itself. If he hasn't got any form of overlap going to the chase, move's not getting done there. So again, it comes down to a surprise location. You got to spring it on him. Would not surprise to see him have a crack at the chase right here. And this time, Mez has got this move done.
He does, going ahead through turn 2 on Simon Gorowski. Isaac Edwards has gotten back out on track, but it was a long stop for his repairs. He's not in contention in this race. It's side by side into Griffin's Bend, and that inside line proving how much more grit it's got with the very pronounced camber and crown of the road there.
Interesting
Speeding
to see.
up front.
See where this is going to get sent. Where's the bravery? Perhaps even Forest Elbow. If you can get such a good run off of the dipper, whereby you're so close there, and you just spring it on at the last minute. Once you get that overlap and you're down the inside there, they've sort of got no choice. Really, you've either got to back out or they've got to back out. That's really the only option.
For Gorowski, big hit for Gorowski as it starts to heat up front. There's dramas behind in 5th place. Lost 4th place did Gorowski, and now he's almost going to lose his engine. Big hit, almost so similar to what we saw before, but this time, rather than snapping back the other way and being able to save it, the car keeps going left. It goes nose first into the wall. He strews Honda parts and oil all over the racetrack here for the race lead, though. Hanma needing to get his elbows out to defend from Mole Queen, who sees the position he's in. Sandwiched between 1st and 3rd place. Hanma will hold on. Mole Queen, though, is in a difficult sandwich.
You know, I was looking for the crossover, and now all of a sudden Foster's going to get the elbows out. 8 minutes on the clock. That says to me we're going to get 4 more laps of this race to come our way, and they're all right there. And unfortunately for Simon Gorowski, this is the old painful ride. Would you say this is the drive of shame back to the pit lane?
Certainly maybe be punching the steering wheel there, because he was lining up to have another great fight with Nozomo, but he's thrown away any chance of that. And we were talking about smoky barbecues across the top of the mountain. Well, he's gone and created one, unfortunately. Here's Hanma, super defensive position, up mountain straight. Mole Queen and Foster both following him in the slipstream. Mole Queen looks to the inside, does not have enough overlap. That Honda motor is completely gone ski. He's going to need to get at least 3 new spoon motors and some other overnight parts from Japan to fix that one up. The joke doesn't actually work because those are made by JAS in Italy, I'm pretty sure, makes the Honda customer racing cars. But he's in the pit lane now, and he's going to need some big repairs, but I suspect his race is probably done if it took Edwards 6 minutes to get his suspension damage fixed. Looking backwards from the race leader, do I need to tell you it's 0.2 of a second? I think it's less than a car length, and that's all that matters. But is there anywhere here where Mole Queen can pass, where he has an advantage? Can you throw it down the inside at the elbow in these cars? So far, we haven't seen that happen. What's Foster doing? Giving himself just a couple more car lengths to this in case something happens?
Alternatively, he's trying to back up. I would say he's made a mistake. I don't think this is intentional. About here for me is where Foster wants to be, because he's going to get so much of a double draft down the straight that by the time that he gets to the chase, he's going to have so much overspeed that the move's going to be all but guaranteed. So probably a fraction closer than where he is to start the straight. But if either of these guys poke their nose out, it'll sort of be job done on that car. And again, Mole Queen's not close enough, so he'll get 3 more opportunities down at the chase after this lap. But I just don't know. Hanma's just driving such a great lap. Such a great performance at the front end of this field that there's no opportunity.
So here we are with Foster, and he loses that time as he's watching the battle in front. He doesn't get to the apex, almost high-siding the car on that aforementioned crown of the road there. Dropped him a couple car lengths, but Mole Queen drops one of the drive wheels into the grass on the exit there, super compromising him. No traction, no speed, has to defend here from Foster, where he'd much rather be trying to attack Hanma for that race lead. Survives that assault. 3 more laps of this, and Hanma, we said, so consistent in race number 1, he's consistently holding them off to this point in race number 2.
And how important is it to note as well that Tyson Hanma's fastest lap, I think, was just on the most recent time by, was an 18.943. The fastest laps of the race, 18.426 for Foster, 18.460. So these guys are half a second quicker than him minimum. That's on fastest lap, remember, compared to what Hanma's capable of doing. But just because Hanma's driving this car smart, making sure that he's covering all the right areas, and because of the, I'm just going to say it, I think it's a lack of wing on that Hyundai Elantra that is giving him all the benefit he needs.
I love a good 6 wings with a schooner special if you need some more. But that'll have to wait. 2.5 laps still to go, and it kind of all starts to set up towards Conrod Straight at the moment. You can't pass at the dipper. It doesn't look like you can pass at the elbow unless you force a mistake, and only place Foster's forced a mistake out of Mulqueen at the moment has been later on in the lap, trying to get good drive off the elbow, made difficult by where the walls are, made difficult by the elevation, by all of that. Edwards not too far from going a lap down. As we look backwards from him, you can see first, second, third, all in a line, heading past Sun Energy 1 Palace, and now heading past Robbo's old place, and 3 down into the chase we go. Such great braking performance from Mulqueen, but he wasn't alongside to do anything about it just yet. Is now the do or die moment as he gets good drive off the chase.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's just positioning the car. He's just doing a great job. Oh, here we go from Mulqueen. He's found a trigger. He's pulled it, but that might have been defensive against Foster.
Flash of the headlights from Hanma as they start to approach the traffic. Foster around the outside really threw it in there, but didn't find the opening he was hoping for from Mulqueen. Got a little bit of the grass on the exit there as well. So he remains in third. No positions changed, but still starting to heat up. Once more on the headlight flash from Hanma, who doesn't want any chance of losing this win, doesn't need any more variables to it.
Smart.
2 laps to go, and up the hill, Edwards will let first, second, third through. No worries at all.
And have a look back down to Mez, who's sort of just sitting down there saying, guys, hey, come on, wait for me. I'd love to be a part of this one if I possibly can. But yeah, there'll be no working with Mez, unfortunately. He's in for a lonely drive down to the shops. I mean, TCR cars, you could go and pick up the groceries, Mez, on your way home, take them home, maybe buy an ice cream out there whilst you're through, go through the drive-through. Unfortunately, there's no drive-throughs in this proximity to the mountain.
The windows do roll down, though, on TCR cars. You've still got the power windows in most of them. So that'll help you at the drive-through. I'm glad you said he was going for ice cream, because I would have probably made other assumptions about what Mez's grocery shopping looks like.
I was going to say, what, a few frozen pizzas, fish and chips. That's a week worth of dinners, I think, at the Mez household.
Oh, I was thinking tinned tomatoes too, maybe. Who knows? But he is still 10 seconds away from this lead battle. In less than 1 second, covers the top 3. They've still got one more lap after this. All 3 of them in the same model of car, but with different setups, taking different lines through the elbow to try to maximize their run on the longest straight on the circuit too. The most committed corner in Australian motorsport at the chase, and they're carrying almost 250 kilometers an hour through there. That's a pretty quick grocery getter. That's some speedy delivery.
Uber Eats, DoorDash, you know what you need to pick up for your fleet? It's one of these things. That'll get your deliveries out.
Or it's free.
2 minutes 20 seconds per 6 kilometers. I'll have you know, David Haynes.
6 kilometers might be the delivery radius. They've only got 6.2 kilometers more to go in this race, though. Barney's waving the white flag. The last lap board is out, and Damon Mulqueen has some overlap with the race leader, but around the outside would be a really gutsy way to try to do this. If you can hang there, you might be able to get the inside of Griffin's Bend. He so wants the inside of Griffin's Bend, but the nose gets chopped off. The door gets slammed in his face, and Mulqueen didn't lift. Mulqueen didn't move his line. He wanted
Is he drafting him?
inside for Griffin's Bend, and it just didn't happen. No space to be found between our top three. They all want the inside line at Griffin's Bend. Hanma will defend it, while Queen will try to open up the entry a little bit. Foster will try to open up the entry even more. You're running out of options if you're Damon Mulqueen. He's so quick in this part of the track. Are we going to see something crazy from him? We're going to see something bold from Foster as he looks down the inside of the cutting. Mulqueen out on the marbles, running wide, and Foster goes through into second. It looks like Mulqueen tried to fight for the lead, and it's cost him second place.
Yeah, he needed to cross him over. He got a really good run off of Griffin's and positioned the car nicely to try and get down the inside. But Foster was the one that was aware. Foster was the one that was looking for that maneuver. And I think this one's come out of, I think Mulqueen's just been a little bit of two minds. Should I go? Should I not go for it? And Foster's gone, you know what? I'm just going to send it. I've got nothing to lose here. I'm finishing third no matter what. So let's have a crack.
And he might still have a chance to have a crack at the lead as well if he can get one of those good drives off onto the Conrod straight once again. And he's going to have a look down the inside here. He makes contact. He moves Hanma out of the way. He moves Hanma into the wall. Hanma is not pleased with it. Foster leads the race. Mulqueen in second, but that was oh so ambitious. He moved the other driver out of the way and sent him to the fence.
That was not on. That was just not on. He was close enough. I think the move would have been done when they got down to about here on Conrod Straight, no matter what was going to happen. And the risk level was so high. If Hanma gets a big hit with the wall here, it's just not on. He's too far back.
Gosh, he kind of makes the corner and he's in the inside though before Hanma turns in. Oh, so easy to look at it on the replay and see something different than what you saw on the live pictures, what the drivers were feeling in the moment as well. The checkered flag's out. James Foster will see it first from Damon Mulqueen, from Tyson Hanma. With Mulqueen in between, Foster had no real opportunity to redress that either if he felt like he maybe needed to. Mazomo will get fourth. Edwards actually takes fifth place away from Gorowski, who we didn't see again with that blown motor. So by persisting, Edwards got himself an extra position. You see them there. 10 seconds for your top four. Oh, so close between your leaders with a bit of drama to go with it. Isaac Edwards getting back out on track proved important for him, as 3 laps down, he did get a spot away from Gorowski, who retired and ended up 4 laps down. Momentarily, they're about to get into race number 3 as well.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. They definitely called in a race control, and I think Tyson Hanma can definitely feel aggrieved about it. So there's 2 notes that'll come out of that one. Number 1, it's the last lap. If I'm the leader, I'm covering that. There's just no reason to leave the hole there. I mean, yeah, you're not expecting it, but at the same time, you know, if you leave the door open, somebody's going to have a crack at you. It's the last lap of the race. You just don't leave those sorts of doors open on the last lap of the race. You sort of shut them down if you possibly can. And number 2, I think it's pretty clear that, to me, that Foster's probably getting a penalty for that. Why not redress it? Why would you want to get a drive-through potentially in race number 3? Because effectively, that's swapped his grid position. If race control gets to that, reviews it, says, yep, drive-through penalty from race 1, starting positions get impacted. Drive-through penalty in race 2, starting position for race 3 gets affected. The problem is now Foster's got pole position for race number 3. That's a big issue because it's pushed Hanma back to 3rd, which is where they obviously all qualified. But the problem with all that is that now, I mean, it's sort of effectively a drive-through. It's such a massive penalty to Foster.
It's on screen now, 10 seconds. So, assumably that gets added. Does that get added to last race? Does that get added to this race? So it'll get added to last race, which will put him into 3rd, but it doesn't affect the grid for
That's my problem with it. Yeah. That is my problem with it. Yeah, I understand.
A little bit too late.
Well, I understand why race control have done it. I understand that the limiting factors, and in all things considered, it's probably the most appropriate penalty. It's just the impact on the grid position. Watch this from Foster. He gets a good start here, race over. He just disappears in the sunset. He wins race 3. If he has to come back through the pack again, there's no guarantee he wins race 3. That is a big factor there.
Well, they're ready to start the final race. And he jumps the start. James Foster jumps the start, and now he doesn't get away cleanly. Mulqueen goes to the lead. Hanma goes through. How about 3 wide behind there with Edwards down the inside. Gorowski looking to go round the outside and pick up 2 if he can. He started back in 6th for this one after blowing the motor with contact at Skyline last race. So once again, looks like a three-way battle up front, three-way battle for some of those positions behind as well, as race 3 gets underway. There is a black flag for James Foster. Is that drive-through or is that stop and hold?
I think there's a stop and hold element added to a jump start. I don't think it's just as simple as a drive-through penalty. Now, effectively, this is actually what we kind of wanted to see. If you eliminate the black flag, I'm actually kind of happy with it because this now becomes the penalty for race number 3. Which, okay, I'm happy with it. The grid positions have been reverted, so to be perfectly honest, let them crack on.
Oh, and then Gorowski runs wide. We've seen that Honda just look like a real handful on these race starts. The Hyundais look like they start a little more planted, and then it comes good later on with some good straight line speed for Gorowski. So Mulqueen leads, no question marks on that. James Foster's worked his way up in a second ahead of Tyson Hanma, but he's going to have to make a trip to pit lane somewhere in this short race, and that's going to send him to the back of the grid. Ken Mazomo, Edwards, and Gorowski remain ahead of him. After that, now becomes the question for me. And can, with the slipstream, Tyson Hanma do anything to try to stay with Damon Mulqueen?
Oh, Foster just grabbed that wall as well.
All make contact with the wall on the exit of the elbow.
Yeah. So obviously everyone's just come from hot tyres back to cold tyres, and there's a real adjustment in that. They've had a minute turnaround time between the two races as well. So
I mean,
it's
famous race strategy. Katy Perry once said, you know, you're hot and you're cold, you're yes and you're no, and all the troubles that can bring you. So I think Bernie Collins might lose her spot on the Sky broadcast to that kind of analysis.
Dave Haynes, it's always a pleasure working with you. You never know what you're going to say about motor racing.
Pit entry, so he's going to serve that penalty early, although he could have waited one lap or two. He's in now. That's well, I'm glad our wall cam still exists there as well, because they got mighty close to it. Here he is, pit lane, at the pit lane speed limit of 50 or 60? 50. It's 50 on iRacing.
Yep.
What do supercars do here? Do they do 60 or 40? Or do they do 50? Do 40, okay.
There you go. Yeah, so anyway, and the issue with Gorowski on lap 1, so it was just a drive-through penalty for James Foster, so he's come and rejoined back out. But Gorowski's now got an overlap, and this time, look at Mez, as soon as he gets clear, Gorowski disappears into the sunset, and he's actually potentially going to be able to tag onto the back of the leaders maybe this race with some damage, because if he's got a nice clean car, that thing will be turning better. The other thing about the Honda Civic Type R, it is what you just mentioned on that previous lap for Gorowski, whereby he had a lot of troubles with getting it stopped at the end of Griffin's. The Honda tends to not fire off its tyres quite as quickly, but the biggest benefit of that is that it really, really looks after its tyres quite nicely. Kind of like a Red Bull F1 car looks after its tyres nicely. Maybe not fires them up quite so quickly as the other cars, but very, very good in the long run.
Well, there's still plenty to play out in this final race of 2-litre Tourers V8SCOPS supports, and plenty more to play out this weekend on SimSpeed as well, as we work towards the main event, the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. And what a great race, what a prestigious race that's going to be. The excitement at Mount Panorama begins to build as we move through the categories, up the grid sizes, and Mount Panorama will truly come alive. Mulqueen, 2 seconds, getting away from Hanma. Mazomo, can he find pace to catch Hanma in this one? Potentially. If he can build some consistency, he might want to. Gorowski will see and get ahead of Isaac Edwards and start to leave him behind. But hey, James Foster, after that drive-through penalty, 22 seconds of lane transit time, probably closer to about a 20-second loss, given you get to cut the final corner on pit entry. Yeah, you can see he's really not that far back. Only 17 seconds off the race lead now. Only 9 seconds behind Isaac Edwards. How far up in 20 minutes with 15 more to go can James Foster get this race?
Yeah, that'll be quite crucial. And have a look at Tyson Hanma's response immediately as well. Sets the fastest lap thus time by. And remembering, looking at those times as well, you can tell tyres not 100% up to temperature and pressure at this point in time. 219. That says there's still got one more lap. Probably about halfway through this lap, they'll be normalised and the entirety of the grip will be available for the drivers. So not next lap, but the lap after is where we'll start setting fastest laps of the race. It might hang around.
Queen, the race leader, only tenths slower than Hanma that last lap, and in between their pace, 2:19.7 from Mizomo. So overall, very equal between the top three. Was a good lap from Hanma, though, to have the fastest lap of the race at the moment. I say they're going quicker again on this lap as those tyres continue to come in. Track temp has stabilised a little bit at 40 Celsius, but some bits of the track will get hotter than others based on the angle of the sun, where the shade, where the shadows are. It is a beautiful clear day with no clouds out there. It's clear, 21 in the air, 41 on track, just a little bit of a southerly breeze.
Huge moment for Mizomo across the top. He was out in the weeds. He's managed to rescue it, but that was a heart and mouth moment, which is sad because he's actually starting to take a lot of time out of Tyson Hanma, and this is where Mez is starting to look comfortable. He's taken races 1 and 2, hasn't really had a chomp. Oh my word! Look at the rear end of that car dancing around.
Mez is working hard. He's trying to catch Tyson Hanma if he can, but gee, maybe that's not the way to do it. This is the final race of the 2-litre Tourers, but there is so much more to happen this afternoon and tonight. We've got Grand Touring coming up. We've got V8s coming up with a race, and then into V8SCOPS qualifying, the second V8s support race, and then the V8SCOPS shootout. I just rewatched the old Murphy lap of the gods today, and I think you could watch that every day of your life from now till the end of time, and you'd still be like, "Whew, that was good." But it was as committed as this, but a little tidier from Greg Murphy than what Simon Mizomo just managed. Do you think he lifted though?
No way. He trusts the grass out there now. That's the difference, isn't it? Oh, word.
Mulqueen goes fastest this lap, 2:18.8. It's pretty zippy.
You know the worst part? He actually didn't lose all that much time on Tyson Hanma. So Hanma had a few mistakes on that lap, and I think they're actually in the run up Mountain Straight, and then the run to the cutting is where I think he actually made his errors. Because if you have a look, it was only 2 tenths in Sector 1. They were pretty even through Sector 2, and then Mez dropped a bunch through Sector 3. So. Yeah, so even after all of that hullabaloo and everything going on from Mez, he actually didn't drop all that much. So hopefully this time by gets a clean lap together. Might bring that race lead just a little bit closer.
I don't need to read any intervals to you. They're all there on screen in the top left. Mizomo starting to close Hanma. Hanma being dropped on that last lap by Xander Mulqueen. Gorowski just keeping it all tidy in fourth. Couple seconds quicker than Edwards, who's now only 6 seconds away from a hungry Foster.
Just having to look at all of this just makes me go, where's the Mazda? I want to jump in a Mazda 3 or, you know, Mazda's variant of the TCR and just get out there and get cracking.
What I loved was the GT4 cars on road tires against the X-Class production cars that had a little bit more weight, but a little bit more power. That was good racing.
Are you talking? Around here, yeah, because I just got recently to witness them from Sandown as well, and the racing was really close. The X-Class cars were a lot quicker in a straight line, but GT4s obviously had the downforce and the grip up. Like I said, spent the weekend actually with that category. Spent a lot of time talking to Carl Begg about how the McLaren 570S GT4 drives. He used to have Mercedes. In fact, he still does have the Mercedes, but just moved over to the McLaren. I think for the Sandown round, he said, man, just the difference between the McLaren and the Mercedes as Isaac Edwards runs wide at the chase. He said there's just no grip. It takes forever for the front end of the McLaren to grip up. But when it does and when it bites, it's definitely a lot better. And then that thing is just so quick in a straight line. The other benefit is that's a car that's come basically straight out of the shop, straight onto the racetrack. Even still has in-car air conditioning. So he said it was a little bit cool running down the back straight at Sandown that weekend because the weather was absolutely horrid Melbourne weather. So just turned on the heating, warmed himself up a little bit, got a little bit comfortable during qualifying, during race number 1. So
the last lap times between second and third, I think, what's that, 0.004 of a second? Also equal at the moment. Hanma trying to hold on to his second place. Mulqueen quicker than the both of them. And that other gap that's closing up is James Foster, 3 seconds quicker than Isaac Edwards, but he remains still 17 seconds away from the race lead. That hasn't changed over the last couple of laps for Foster, so he's doing just about the same pace as Mulqueen at the moment.
It'll be interesting to see where this plays out, where he gets back to, because like you said, 3 seconds out of Edwards on the most recent lap. You took about 1.2 out of Simon Gorowski on that lap as well. So he is closing in on both of those guys quite a lot. You know, a lot of points still left on the table for him. I think round winner's now gone. I think that's in Mulqueen's hands really to lose, because if you think about it, second in race 1 after the penalty will become the race winner of race number 2, and race number 3 you'll get the win at the moment, barring any disasters. I've cursed a few drivers over my years, and I'm hoping that this Damien Mulqueen drive isn't another one.
It's like Edwards was a bit wide there that time at the elbow. The gap continues to close significantly between himself and Foster, who might be all over him by about the time they get to Griffin's Bend next lap, based on the speed difference. But there's not so much of a difference between them in a straight line. Most of it exists in the braking zone and in the corners, and there's more long straights at this part of the lap than there is across the top of the mountain, where confidence and driving skill makes the biggest difference car to car.
I had a really interesting discussion probably about 2.5 years ago now, as Mulqueen's going to go through and set a new fastest lap of the race. It'll be interesting to see whether or not Foster, he gets it by 4 thousandths, by the way, that fastest lap of the race. So I'm wondering whether or not Foster might have something for him here. Nope, Foster not able to set it, steal it back on that lap. Was talking to, now I can't think of the guy's name, but one of the Oz Pro-Am Sim Series drivers that's been with that series for forever. And he said, generally when you have a look at it and the times he's having it driven through the field, the biggest difference between all the drivers is actually the braking zone. Most average to sort of mid-level drivers know where to pick up the throttle. And they pick up the throttle quite okay, but it's the braking, the confidence under the braking seems to be where all the advantage is, and then using all the tracks. So yeah, generally you're 100% right, Dave. Straight line speed, pretty much bang on, but it's all the braking is the big difference.
Does he make contact with Edwards as he throws a surprise move at the inside of the cutting? Not where Edwards was expecting it. Edwards knew it was coming somewhere this lap, but I don't think he was expecting it there. Foster through so quickly, with some frustration, I'm sure. Here we go. As he tries to get to the inside, does he move Edwards? Well, depends how you look at it, I think. But either way, a very ambitious move.
Audacious, brave. A lot going on there for Foster.
Even.
Yeah, there's a lot of adjectives that can be used to describe that one. Committed to it, made the move stick at least, so that does all get done. And now his next target will be Gorowski, who's, for him, he's only going to be about 5 seconds up the road, so there's still enough time for that one to happen for sure, but yeah, he's running out of time. It's got to be damn near perfect from here to the end of the race to get that job done.
You're going to pencil that one in for the last lap, that battle. But this one here, he's going for it. He's always looking to go for it. It just all hinges on how wide does the driver in front track out to try to open up the cutting. And you've seen different drivers do different stuff there. Some stay sort of middle of the road, make sure they get the nose to the apex, and then try to use a bit of the camber there. And then others will really open it up. And he was hoping Edwards was going to open it up and show more of the inside line than he did. There was sort of a millimeter one way, millimeter the other on whether he was going to absolutely shovel Edwards out of the way or whether he was going to cleanly dive down the inside there. And it ended up right on the borderline where you can say, oh, I think it was on there, and he definitely made the corner from the inside, but did he force a gap open at the inside to get there? Now, for Foster catching Gorowski, he's been 2 seconds a lap quicker. He was 6 seconds behind. It'll take him 3 laps, and there's 3 laps left. So I think that one, again, pencil that in for maybe the chase on the final lap. Mez trying to catch Hanmer as well. Those are the other battles left out on track in the final race of the 2-litre Tourers from Mount Panorama. How do you rate that one, tipping it in?
Oh yeah, that's a little bit of a tip in. He's had a lot of dramas this race, Simon Gorowski. I think his confidence level and his comfort level coming into race 1 was quite high. He looked okay. He looked in a really good stand. Race 1 was quite good. Never since then, I think he's just been slowly slipping a little bit further away. A couple little mistakes starting to creep in. It'll be interesting to see whether they continue. I believe he's taking part in the GT4s a little bit later on. Hanma's made a huge mistake across the top, by the way. That margin between himself and Mazomo has just come down by 3 or 4 tenths of a second. So there's a lot on there, and that margin between Foster and Gorowski, I think he's made enough on this lap already, and there's still half the lap left to go. So he's going to get there for sure.
This lap's been scruffy in a couple of places so far from Gorowski, and Foster seems to be, in clean air, finding his pole setting and race winning rhythm at the moment. The win is probably out of question in this race at the moment, but he's had the pace for it when he could cleanly execute, and he's in clean air at the moment. So Hanma and Gorowski seem to be the two drivers struggling with grip, maybe struggling with concentration at the end of 3 races at Mount Panorama.
Yeah, it takes a lot out of you. It's been an hour worth of racing when we get to the tail end of this one, broken up into 3 20-minute segments, but there's been next to nothing between the races. It's enough to sort of catch yourself, grab a breath, maybe a few sips on the water bottle and settle yourself back in. Make sure you've got enough fuel, make sure the setup's right. If you want the adjustments, you've really got next to no time to get those into the car. So you're going to make sure you get them right and get them in there nice and accurately, and then back out on the grid for the next race as well. So it's been tight. Mez is going to take 3 tenths of a second at Tyson Hanma on that last lap. And that Hyundai Elantra is starting to get a little bit bigger in the rearview mirror, Tyson Hanma.
3 minutes left, 2 laps to go. Mulqueen managing that nice lead. Hanma still keeping Mazomo more than 1 second behind, which is also critical because it's not worth a second per lap, but the slipstream is definitely worth a couple tenths, specifically up Mountain Straight, down Conrod Straight. If you let them get within 1 second, chances are eventually they'll end up crawling all over your bumper. What about the gaps here then? Foster 2.1 seconds quicker last lap. The gap underneath 4 seconds. So the way it's trending at the moment, definitely expecting Foster to catch Gorowski before the end of this race. The question is, where? Is it on the final lap? And is it with enough time left to try to make a move? The form guide says Foster sees every corner as an opportunity to try to pass.
Yeah, and did you have a look at the way that Gorowski's car was just wiggling under braking quite a lot, particularly on the run up into the cutting? There was no point where he wasn't having to sort of catch it with the wheel as well. So he's struggling for those rear tires and the ability to keep it underneath him at the moment. And those are the 2 battles that we're going to see on this last lap.
He's puts another signature on the concrete wall on the exit of the elbow. He's been there a couple times now. He's going to have to start dating each one of them.
few kisses on a number of walls.
He's on to a 3rd date then.
Yeah. I'm just wondering whether or not there's starting to be some steering damage, because that right front, the tires have taken quite a hefty whack, so he's got to pull it up. But in the meantime, in front of him, Gorowski's not pulling that car up nice and neatly. And he's starting to struggle quite immensely in terms of the form guide of this one. So last lap of the race,
pick both sides of the track on that one.
Yeah, doing some lawn mowing, just making sure the edges around the facilities are nice and cleanly done. For me, Mazomo's opportunity's gone. He made a couple mistakes in the tail end of that race, so we're probably tail end of that lap. So job's done for Tyson Hanma. He's just going to park it nice and cleanly all the way up and across the top, but it was that battle behind. I think this one's going to be the key one, and we've already seen the trigger being pulled at the inopportune moments from Foster. In race number 2, I thought that was audacious, even more so than what we saw so far from him in race number 3. And Gorowski made that car very, very wide in race number 1. Mazomo could not find a way past that one.
And within 1 second now, as James Foster begins to line up on Simon Gorowski, and Tyson Hanma looks like he might be off the hook on the final lap here. His weakness is maybe being in the race pace, but definitely not in consistency for Tyson Hanma. And consistency is what he needs on this final lap to try to bring home a podium. Foster, though, taking a car length out of Gorowski in every single braking zone, taking half a car length through every corner, and it's got to be either the elbow or the chase, or maybe even the final corner. Foster will make an opportunity of one of them, and this is where the motor went last race, over the top of the hill for Gorowski. He's so cautious there. That's been his weak spot, and that's to James Foster's benefit, as he's within 1 car length now. The elbow, does he think about it? Well, he thought about it, but he didn't do it for sure. He tries to line up a late apex out of that corner. He's all over Gorowski down the straight. Now it's on the Honda driver to pick what line he thinks is going to give him the best chance to defend at the chase. Whichever way he goes, Foster will look the other, and Foster looks to the inside of the kink, the outside of the corner proper. They'll be absolutely side by side at the fastest part of the track. Gorowski, can he outbrake Foster? He can't quite. Foster gets his nose in front, begins to turn in, gets a little bit of a tap. Mulqueen takes the win, takes the round win. Hanmer and Mazzomo will be second and third, but Gorowski gets back in front of Foster. After Foster rejoins through the grass, Gorowski looks like he wants to hold on to his 4th place. Will he? Yes, he will. And James Foster crosses the line in 5th. 11 seconds behind them is Edwards, but this is the contact there. My, oh my.
And the critical factor is where the contact came. It was before either of those really turned in. There was still overlap at all stages of that one. And I'm curious. We're going to have to see that back. I think just again, it's just that angle just definitely does not give us enough information. It's in Race Control's hands, but something that's not in Race Control's hand is Damien Mulqueen. What a drive from him. Wins race 2, wins race 3, wins the round.
Absolutely, he does. He'll be well pleased with that, ahead of Hanmer, who managed to stay relatively consistent and scoring a couple of second places there, ahead of Mazzomo, who gets on the podium from Gorowski and James Foster, both of those two with a little bit of feeling on the last lap of the last race for 2-litre Tourers. Isaac Edwards sees this one out cleanly for 6th place, improving on the laps down result out of race number 2, even if he doesn't improve on the overall position. So we'll have one more look here. So Foster gets ahead. He tries to come back across, but before the quite proper turn-in point, Gorowski is committed deep to get that overlap back. Just a little bit of a shuffle. And there's some sticky glue pads out in the grass these days. You can't carry speed through them.
Yeah, but Gorowski didn't have overlap. The only time he got overlap was just fractionally before that contact. I actually thought, from Gorowski's point of view, he actually maintained overlap, all the way up until they got on the brakes. But that's actually not the case. There was he was clearing in front from Foster, which is why he was sort of covering the inside. He had the rights to cover that inside, but yeah. Anyway, such is life, and we've got the results from the round.
So more V8SCOPS support series and then qualifying action to come. A big day on the mountain and on SimSpeed TV. Grand Touring comes up next, and there's a couple more cars for that. Maybe yet more excitement on the mountain. Stay with us on SimSpeed TV. That's coming up next.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Back again at the mountain with Sim Speed TV for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 weekend, the biggest sim racing weekend on the mountain. And the support categories roll on. We've just enjoyed close racing with a little bit of spice, some controversy maybe even out of the 2-litre Tourers. But now it's time for Grand Touring a little bit quicker, a little bit more power, and maybe a little bit more slipstreaming up and down the mountain as well. Looking forward to all of that coming up now. David Haynes here with Scott Rankin and Jay Kennedy. Let's look at what's in store for us with Grand Tour. It's qualifying and then 3 20-minute races with that reverse grid middle race that delivered so much excitement in the 2-litre Tourers. What has it got coming up with GT4 machinery and another great variety of marques and models available for drivers to choose from that suits the track, suits their driving style, that suits their sense of style even. If you just think one's cooler than the other, and definitely some prestigious marques available between McLaren, between Mercedes, and see them out on track right now for qualifying with a minute left. Sean Linsell in that Mercedes AMG GT4 currently has pole position at 6/10 over Matthew Pluck. Damon Mulqueen has gone and parked the Hyundai, gotten into something a little bit more spacious, and he's third at the moment. Linsell crosses the line, finds a little bit of improvement and a couple more tenths on what's a warm afternoon at Mount Panorama. Pluck in the McLaren though, mid-engined, goes second. That's normally a car that can be pretty good in a straight line. How about a BMW? But, back here with McQueen crossing the line. Sorry, Taylor Oates crossing the line. Hoping to find some improvement, and he does. Not only on the stopwatch, but in the leaderboard as well to jump up into 4th place. So we've seen Mercedes, we've seen BMW, we've seen McLaren. Their qualifying is almost done, and then the business of racing begins. And that's the checkered flag and the end of qualifying. 3 races ahead of us for Grand Tour. And the qualifying grid is locked in. Here it is. Linsell on pole from Pluck, 1st and 2nd on the starting grid for Mount Panorama. Damon Mulqueen's back there in 3rd, just ahead of Taylor Oates, who found really good late improvement to jump Dan Stevens and Tom Riley, and those lap times are super close between the Mercedes, BMW, and McLaren. So got Shane Best and Linton Wills. Now, qualifying times on the grid. Ahead of, I suspect we're going to see Danny Vassell in the BMW.
But that was Henry King's safety car on the other side of the equation. In terms of things, there's been an interesting grid. Having a look at the manufacturers and where they're all situated, pole position done by Mercedes. P2 was a McLaren, and then it was sort of just jumped, and the manufacturers are all sort of different. So Mercedes, McLaren, BMW, Mercedes, and another BMW back there as well, AMG. So it's really, really mixed up in terms of the grid order. I was having a look at a few different times in terms of what the official races are running this week. There's a Porsche who's actually leading the way in terms of race times, in terms of official racing at Indianapolis Road Course. So the Porsche is actually quite good even on a track with a long straight line. So anyway, that's how things are looking. But I can tell you what, these cars are beautiful to look at in real life. If you have ever seen some pretty cars, you thought you'd seen some pretty cars, the rear end of that McLaren is really, really beautiful to listen to, and they've got the burbles bang on it on iRacing. Watching them live is a treat as well. I think we're just a few moments away from going green here at the moment. Revs are going to rise, and the run down to turn number 1 for race number 1 of the Grand Touring Season GT4 actions. These cars don't have clutches by and large up and down the field, so getting them off a standing start tends to be quite difficult, but it's going to see just about status quo as they run down to turn number 1 for the first couple of rows. Linsell will lead the way onto Mountain Straight. It'll then be Matthew Pluck, and the speed in the McLaren in the straight line is a thing to watch indeed. Here comes Taylor Oakes around the outside of Damon Mulqueen in the Mercedes on the inside, and we'll see if he can get there from Oakes. He's got the nose ahead, but then it's down and turns into Grifton Bend. It's going to jump away from him as the front engine Mercedes gets a little bit more grip, and then deeper in the pack there's a lot of squabbling, a little bit of tyre smoke, and the run up to the cutting for the first time today in GT4 action.
And that cutting for the first time, you're trying to get your tyre pressures up. You've got front engine cars, you've got mid-engine cars, cars that will light up very well off the start, and others that take just a little bit to get their balance. The Beamers, they get up to speed pretty well, but the Mercedes, you've got plenty of engine displacement there. You've got the V8 compared to the 6-cylinder of the Beamers. You get that displacement going across the top of the mountain on quite a warm day. It's getting even hotter from the Tourers to here in Grand Tour in these bigger, beastlier cars.
And keep an eye on them as they come down the straight. McLaren's very, very quick in the straight line. Who's that in the background? Shane Best. He's gone a long way back up the hill. Got to be careful here. He's going to pull that one back up, but that BMW is going to be incredibly damaged, and the other of the BMWs at the tail end of the field for Dan Stevens as well.
We've got 2 BMWs facing backwards. Must stand for backwards motor works or something based on what we're seeing off this race 1. Clearly the opening lap stability for the BMW is not as good as a Mercedes. Straight line performance can sometimes be an advantage to the McLaren, and also by its mid-engine nature, some of the longer, higher speed, more wide open corners. It's a little stop-start at the bottom of the hill here, but it's oh so close. Amongst our top 4, Linsell, Pluck, Mulqueen, Oakes, as we complete the first lap. These cars, a bit more speed than TCR, might get a couple more laps into 20 minutes as well, and oh my, lucky to still have an engine if he's got one. BMW versus BMW contact there, and further around, just too much speed down the hill. It's offline, braking into the elbow, and ends up facing backwards in such a precarious spot.
Yeah, but all managed to come out there on the other side, and as well, have a look at Matthew Pluck starting to crawl all over that rear end of Linsell, and Oakes is on the rear bumper, and Mulqueen here as well. So Mulqueen goes from winning the round in terms of TCR to a little bit further down in terms of the GT4s. He showed that pace. I'm really keen to just have a look at the differences between these cars as they come up to the cutting. Look at all that extra weight on the nose, and the Mercedes can just carry so much more speed into the cutting, and just so much more security up there. Cold tyres on the McLaren, they will wander in the rear end quite a little bit. Mercedes does a little bit as well, but that's just from not necessarily having the weight over the rear end like the McLaren does. But other than that, they're just about, yeah, Mercedes is the more popular just because of that engine note, but the McLaren's just got such a good straight line speed. Look at how low it is compared to the other cars.
Ride height's one of the balance of performance parameters for a GT4 car, so is the minimum weight, and all of those things can vary far more GT4 car to GT4 car than you typically see from GT3. GT3 is very much in a plus or minus 50 kilograms one car to the other. No, it can go between 900 kilograms to 1500 kilograms in these class cars. The Alpine GT4 that we don't have on iRacing is very, very light. The Audi R8 GT4 that we don't have on iRacing, and no one's going to have in real life anymore anyway, very much on the heavy scale. These cars sit a little more in between. Ride height also different one to another. So it's like your last day in the office. Everyone's signing that card.
Oh no, and another car around as well as Denny Vassell. Deep in the pack, unfortunately, in the BMWs. The BMWs started strong, but now they're all 7th, 8th, 9th, all down at the tail end of the field as well. It'd be interesting to see whether or not Pluck is just a little bit closer to Linsell this time by, might be able to get down the inside. Differences between these cars, the Australian GT4 Championship, like I said, got the opportunity to go down and be a part of that. Was talking to a few of the guys around, what's the balance of performance. Well, with the Australian GT4 category at the moment, the monochrome GT4 category, they're actually running it as a part of the Australian production car category. So all of their balance of performance is to try and bring them back a little bit towards more of the production cars and give them that racing that you were talking about with the Class X cars from production car racing. One of the balance of performance features that they get is the semi-slick. They don't get a full-blown Pirelli slick tire. They are on a semi-slick, and one of the others is actually they have a preset engine mapping that they must use for all rounds, and that's set all the way back at the start of the season in these cars as well.
I actually really love how they look on those semi-slick tires. Move around a lot more and do look a lot more production car-like than on slick tires. But with the slick tires that they're on here in V8SCOPS supports, the racing is sure looking pretty good up front at the moment. Sean Linsell was controlled in qualifying. He's looking controlled in the race right now, but he's not able to leave Matthew Pluck, Damon Mulqueen, or Taylor Oakes behind. And Lyndon Wills has settled into 5th with Tom Riley in 6th, but there's a couple of BMWs towards the tail of the field, and their tail's been in front of their nose a couple of times.
He's getting close, isn't he? It's just that drive coming off. That Merc just has so much more drive coming off of all the slow corners, and just that little bit better security as he tips it in off of Forest Elbow. He can get back to the throttle a lot earlier, and with that torque, and the Mercedes just walks it away. By the time the McLaren takes over, it's too far down the straight. You're never getting that job done. So Pluck's certainly got pace, and he's got enough pace to stay here with these guys, but not able to get the move done. I think Oakes is definitely a shot to get this job done. On Damon Mulqueen just ahead of him, but this one's going to have to get a little bit tighter, I think, as well. So I'm expecting, Mulqueen's already whacked the wall at Forest Elbow once. He makes another mistake like that, that'll present an opportunity, and that's, you just saw it from Taylor Oakes as well. Even though they've got traction control built into these cars, for the McLaren, it's only got 3 settings. I think it's got road, sport, and track are the 3 settings. So, and it's a combined ABS and traction control setting. And the car does sort of want to wander a little bit in some of the slower corners as you release the brake.
My GT4 car traction control would have 3 settings: stun, maim, and kill.
Well, off is also an option.
I think that's kill.
So there's the 4th option, sorry. There you go, found one.
Linsell still leads as we ride on board with Taylor Oakes in 4th place. Mulqueen picked up that fastest lap of the race last lap around, so he's starting to get away from us a tiny bit from this perspective. Starting to close in on that leading battle. Do you think that the McLaren, as the race goes on, gets a little more into its element?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, particularly with the track temperatures that are up a little bit higher now as well. We've just hit 1 p.m. sim time. 41 Celsius in terms of track temperatures. The benefit of the McLaren is it's working on 4 tyres quite well with the balance of that car. Yet doesn't quite have the same weight on the nose, and that was a huge mistake from Linsell coming down through the S's that time by. The problem Linsell's going to have is he's probably going to wear out these front tyres just a little bit, which will present some opportunities for Pluck, but at the same time, Pluck's got to be there late on. The McLaren can wear its rears out with just that amount of dancing around that it does, so he's got to be careful to keep the car underneath him as well.
Still relatively close amongst our top 4, but Taylor's just starting to drop back. Damon Mulqueen trying to go with our leading duo. Does Linsell need to worry about covering off anything with Chase this time? No, he doesn't. Speed trap speed's a little bit quicker than what we've just seen out of the Hyundais and Hondas. I'm seeing a peak trap speed of 266 from Taylor Oakes in that McLaren. So when he has picked up a slipstream behind a bunch of the cars in front, he's had some mighty straight line speed.
You can just see it. He's just starting to struggle a little bit with the front end of that Mercedes and getting that thing pointed. Didn't use all the road off of Murray's, so there's a couple of vulnerabilities in Mole Queen. The problem that Oakes has had now is he had made a couple of mistakes on that last lap, and that's what's presented the opportunity for Mole Queen to get his eyes firmly pointed forward and not worry about the guys in the rear view. So it's going to come down to mistakes. And I mean, at the mountain, with these class of cars, they do wiggle around quite a bit. So yeah, look, I mean, you know, settle it in, get to that probably 5 to go marker, and then if you've got some rubber underneath, you might present an opportunity. But Pluck looks so quick at the moment.
Seeing the McLaren name next to a silver fern just feels right for me, to be honest. And that fast turn 2 at Griffin's Bend certainly looks like a good corner for the McLaren as well. Slow stop start stuff doesn't maybe seem like it favors it as much. It's sort of third gear, fourth gear through some of the faster corners that the mid-engine balance looks really good to me. That's this part of the lap here across the top, and also in combination with that straight line speed at the moment. Not shy on getting close up to the wall as your leader, Sean Linseld, and he's a little wide of the apex at McPhillamy Park there. Pluck was right on it down the hill. You need confidence, you need balance to yeet across the crest there with maximum speed, carrying all of it to then the turning point of the dipper, carrying speed through there to get the throttle open early down the hill to the elbow. Different lines from different marks of car.
Yeah, one of the biggest factors, and I think you're going to see Matthew Pluck struggle because of it, is that that McLaren doesn't have a clutch. It's a completely semi-automatic gearbox. So there's no clutch inputs for him. All he's got to do is just rev the thing as hard as he possibly can, dump it into first, and see what happens out the other side. Whereas I think the Mercedes, from memory, actually does have that option of feeding the clutch out a little bit. So a little bit better pickup in terms of performance off the standing starts. This class generally not designed for standing starts. They're generally more of a GT style start with a rolling start. But sometimes that offers, you know, some of the intriguing facts about running different series right across the country as well. Standing starts and cars that aren't meant for it, you know, you've got to figure out a way to get that thing off the line, and that means that driver skill comes into it.
So how about the battle for the best BMW at the moment? Well, by name and by nature at the moment, the 7th place Shane Best, but Dan Stevens starting to close him in after being used as a tiny bit of a pinball in the opening lap where some of the BMWs began to drop back. Danny Vassell still a while behind this battle, but Stevens, oh, he's closing in here.
It'd be interesting to see the BMWs go toe-to-toe. Look at the damage that's on the front end of that Shane Best BMW as well. He's going to struggle in terms of a straight line, and Stevens is coming at him. He's got a little bit of pace in this Beamer as well. And hopefully for both of these guys, race 2 will be just a little bit better for these guys.
Using plenty of the first corner and then the drive up the hill. It's critical. Stevens has a good run. He's got a big slipstream from the hole that the big Beamer punches, and he has room to get to the inside for Griffin's Bend. 7th place, Stevens has his nose in front. He has the best car placement, and he can carry his speed through Griffin's Bend and up one spot.
Yeah, nicely done.
Like he's related to Roxy with that helmet. The iRacing Porsche with a big grin on it.
Just looks good, to be perfectly honest with you. Present some style, present something. Oh, Linton Wills!
He's around at Skyline. There's a bunch of drivers coming up on him, and that's why he can't immediately flick it around. Oh, no clutch to dump, no traction control to let him spin that one up. He's given the wall a kiss here, a kiss there, dropped a couple of spots, still ahead of Stevens and Best, but how does it happen? He gets all over the grass at the exit of McPhillamy Park, and already that later little tap on the wall, the least of his worries after that monstrous hit. Now he drops back into 8th as Stevens and Best go past him. Thomas Riley got past him as well. So Linton Wills, I think big damage on that. Stevens all over the wall. That's less than signing the card.
Yeah, it's starting to get really antsy.
Out the window.
They're all getting out there today, aren't they, Dave? I'm wondering whether or not it's that track temperature, whether or not there's just not all that much grip out there on the exit at the elbow today.
Must be fair to say they're getting their elbows out.
Oh, you've been setting that one up for a while. You've been waiting for the opportunity.
No, it did just come to me then, but despite all of that, how much damage has Dan Stevens picked up? Is he able to stay ahead? We know Best also has a chunk of damage on. So between the two of them, it's who is least worst wounded.
How good is it to see the BMWs actually out there and performing, though, and going toe-to-toe? This is back up for P3 at the moment. I think Oaks is actually starting to respond and come back at him. No, Oaks actually on the most recent lap actually dropped about 0.7 of a second, so... My apologies, wrong way around, 0.7 of a second faster. So yeah, just like I said, he is starting to come back at Mercedes, so wondering whether or not the front end grip of that Mercedes is slowly going away from it. 20-minute race, you don't want to be going through tyres in a 20-minute race, Dave, in a GT car that's designed, this Mercedes AMG's got a 120-litre tank on it. You could generally get, what, 30 laps or so out at the mountain? Similar engine to what's in the GT3 capacity as well. It's got about 540 brake horsepower, so no slouch in a straight line, and long classy front grille, front nose on it. Such a big feature.
Engine as the Aston Martin AMR GT4 with a 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 iRacing.
Yeah, well, you get different models of the car, you get different years of them. It's quite a successful little package that Mercedes have put together in this car. Won a couple of Nürburgring SP10 classes, 24 hours, in terms of its viability, but just that McLaren's just lower overall profile, so much quicker in a straight line. Literally looks like an arrow when looked side on. Just so much more aerodynamically efficient in terms of straight line speed.
Sure does, and it's got a very, very sporty door, the McLaren, as well. You can open it straight up, and it's the same for the GT4 car as the road car. They are, I think, if anything, some of these GT4 cars are more closely related to their road car than the TCR models are. That sometimes seems the case, especially if you're starting with what's already a very high-performance road car. You don't need to find too much extra performance in many places, and in fact, your engine management's normally dropping your power down a little bit to match you to the speed profile that the GT4 cars in their homologation and BOP are meant to do. But now, back within 1 second of Sean Linsell, gonna have to be really, really consistent, really committed here to remain within the slipstream of Sean Linsell, who is just metronomic in consistency at the moment.
The difference between the McLaren and the Mercedes in terms of their engine capacity, by the way, 3.8 litre twin turbo V8 for the McLaren. So another V8, but it's got that 200 mil less in terms of its engine capacity. Still putting out roughly the same amount of power, though. It's just that aerodynamic performance for it. It's incredibly good.
I've got a see, that's August 2020 SRO GT4 BOP sheet in front of me right here. What do you want to know? You want some ride heights? You want some weights? The Mercedes is, on this BOP sheet, 1,460 kilograms, while the McLaren is 1,455. So just 5 kilos different of total weight in them, but you've got to put more lead in the Mercedes to get it up there because the base weight of the McLaren's just a little more. So that's 30 extra kilos in the Macca, 60 extra in the Mercedes to bring them just 5 kilos apart. They're going to start the final lap of the race here now, just 2 minutes on the clock. So not sure they're going to squeak an extra lap in compared to what the 2-litre Tourers were doing. The lap time difference is not so great. It's more kind of around 4 extra seconds, and a lot of that coming in a straight line.
Significantly faster in a straight line. But I mean, the other thing is how agile they are in the corners as well, because obviously they're rear wheel drive, not front wheel drive. So whilst the TCR will probably enter the corners a fraction faster and pivot quite nicely initially, the throttle pickup of the rear engine cars is so much different. and it's really just a sight to behold, that McLaren, by the way, in real life, looking through the rear end of that car. By the way, the McLaren has 2 radiator tanks in either side, as there's another BMW down at the elbow. These guys are rapidly on their way here too.
Another backwards BMW looking like a very, very sketchy package at the mountain today. Although Pluck looks like he was so committed. Up against the wall at Metal Grate. What it's known for when you're really on a flyer, really pushing. Here is what happens to the BMW of Danny Vassell, though. It's the instability on the brakes as well. And once it steps out, no ability to get it back, unfortunately.
Was that a spin that took like 3 seconds for the car to actually come around? Was how long that took? Just because of the initial pickup of the brakes. I think you're right there. Yeah, where was I going with that? Radiator tanks in the McLaren. One of the big things about the McLaren is actually you really cannot afford to touch another car because the radiators. There's a radiator tank just in front of the rear wheels, in behind where the doors are. And the Sandown round, there was a radiator tank that had to be replaced because a tyre went through it effectively. And they're actually a plastic tank on the ones that come out. They're not a metal tank in there that sort of can take some bending, bend it back out, and good to go again. So, yeah, he got quite close there from Matthew Pluck, but just not enough.
Here's the checkered flag for Linsell, and he is going to hold on to this race win, converting from pole position, but almost never more than a second away from the charging McLaren behind. Third place, Greta Mulqueen from Oaks in 4th.
Have a look at that fastest lap on the last lap of the race from Matthew Pluck as well. So that was some good performance there late on in that one.
Absolutely, it was. Close race. Maybe not the battling we would have hoped for, but you know that no one can afford to misstep around Mount Panorama with the consequences of where the walls are and with how close your rivals are behind you in the top 4 here. The top 4 finish how they qualified. Down the grid, though, there's a couple more drivers yet to finish, like biggest mover of the race, Dan Stevens. No qualifying time from him sees him start rear of grid, but he comes through when some of the other BMWs faltered to take 6th place from Shane Best 7th. Danny Vassell still motoring around in 8th. Linton Wills, he had that huge hit at Skyline after skating across the grass at McPhillamy Park. He ends up 9th after needing to traverse the pit lane. Thomas Riley inherited a spot up into 5th. We'll see it as a graphic in a second here, confirming Linsell the winner by just half a second. Damon Mulqueen there in 3rd on the podium, but less than a second ahead of Taylor Oakes. You take that top 9, Scott, and you got to flip them around when we head into race 2.
Yeah, and it's going to be so crucial. Like the Mercedes, just that extra little bit of grunt and launch off the line compared to the McLaren. So Pluck will have to try and defend that one on the run down to turn number 1. He's going to be on the outside of the road as well. I think Linsell's going to be on the inside of him. So try and hang on to that. How they pick off the traffic, where they pick off the traffic, that straight line speed of the McLaren just might be the defining factor for how they get through race number 2. And you've got to think about that a little bit. When you're getting through things, I'm a little bit worried when we get down to the elbow with all those BMWs right at the front end of the field, and they're going to be leading the pack potentially when we get down to the elbow. There could be some chaos on lap number 1.
They don't have long to wait before we head into the 20-minute race number 2 with our inverted grid. Henry King, that's the safety car. Haven't needed him yet in any of the racing so far, leading up to a big day for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 with their qualifying and shootout. But Linton Wills, by virtue of his 1 lap down finish, he ends up on the pole for race number 2. Danny Vassell and Shane Best get to continue their battle as they start 2nd and 3rd, and Dan Stevens, more work to do picking off other BMWs in this race. Tom Riley will start there in what will effectively be 5th once we discount the safety car. And then our drivers who are so competitive in the top 4 have work to do from the back of the grid. Taylor Oakes, McLaren's looked good once they got going, and now they got some good grid placement ahead of some of those Mercedes. Matthew Pluck came good late on, and he'll start just ahead of the race 1 winner, Sean Linsell. They're ready to go, and they are away, and such a slow start from your race-leading Mercedes there. The BMWs, they're so sketchy on the tires, but they get away well off this start. It's 3 wide and there's contact in turn one already. Linton Wills from the pole already to the rear of the grid. He'll be so disappointed with that race start.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, they're 3 wide. Oh, have a look at how out of control this BMW is. There's something broken in the rear end of that car for sure. It's just not sitting on the road properly at the moment.
So Best with some dramas. The field up front have dramas at Griffin's Bend as well. Another BMW around, another BMW around. DJ Khaled, another one. Those BMWs are struggling. Daniel Stevens, though, he seems to have a grip on them as he leads the race from Taylor Oakes, who's made massive progress in just a handful of corners in this race number 2 already to be in second, challenging for the lead. How about another car? Damon Mulqueen there in third. The next McLaren, Matthew Pluck up in a fourth, and the race 1 winner, Sean Linsell, moving to fifth. Still a lot of work to do if he's going to go back-to-back and repeat. Daniel Stevens is going to get in over his head here and overdrive that tricky BMW.
Yeah, he's going to back them all up as they get down in here towards the elbow. Be interested to see whether or not Oakes tries to show the nose to the inside of the elbow. If he does, and something happens on the outside, there's good opportunity for him to get clear. Unfortunately, down at the tail end of the field, this is just going to be drama again for Tom Riley. It's been a while since I've seen him in action, and unfortunately for him, it looks like it's going to be a while before he gets to go racing yet again, probably another 20 minutes or so.
Race 1 was tidy for Riley. Race 2 is not, and there is that poor getaway initially from Linton Wills. Then everything's 3 wide in front of him. I'm not sure he knew it was 3 wide. He turned in like it was 2 wide, and Best helps him out into the gravel, but it destroys the rear suspension for Wills. Oh, and for the race lead. Oh no, Taylor Oakes goes into the wall as he made door-to-door contact with Dan Stevens. There's another BMW going for an excursion through the gravel. Dramatic day to be a BMW, but Damon Mulqueen leads. Matthew Pluck goes through. They're both taking spots away from Daniel Stevens. Sean Linsell's in place to try to capitalize here as well. He doesn't want to get stuck behind the middle finger racing BMW. 3 marks, 3 models, 3 wide at Mount Panorama, but the McLaren looks best placed, trying to just keep it clean at this moment. Drama everywhere you look for V8SCOPS Support's Grand Tour.
Yeah, but I mean, you had to look back at it. It was 3 wide when they went down to the turn number 1. Not enough space left. Then you get to the cutting. I had a quick look, at the chase, the incident that happened at the chase, and from my eye of view, both of them had a huge wiggle. Pluck's going to get this job done here, but he's going to have to run all the way out on the marbles out there as well. It's not quite done as they get up to the cutting this time.
Oh, he had a wiggle around the outside of Griffin's Bend as he tried to hold on. Now Stevens isn't around. The BMW is so difficult on the brakes to turn into the corners. He drops back. Taylor Oakes goes past him and might say something as he goes past with some choice words as well. This earlier in the race at the end of last lap, battling for the lead of the race. The BMW is tough to drive, but so quick in a straight line. The McLaren gets alongside, and then as they come back to the racing line, initially a little bit of contact upsets Oakes. He comes back into the side of the BMW and then ricochets into the outside wall.
The critical thing for Oakes was he picked up a touch of grass on the right-hand side of the track, which was what really sort of unsettled him, as flung him back to the left-hand side. Would you say anyone more at fault? Yeah, I don't think anyone's majorly at fault. I think they sort of both made mistakes, and if anything, they've actually both prevented each other from ending up in bigger incidents. So it's kind of happy that they've both escorted themselves wide as they got down the chase on that lap. Sort of saved both of them.
Serene sailing so far for Sean Linsell as he's picked them off one by one, but now Matthew Pluck is going to try to pick and choose the side of the road that he wants as they battle for second place. Down into the chase, Linsell goes round the outside, normally pretty confident on the brakes in the Mercedes, and he comes across into second place as this all transpires. Damon Mulqueen, what a lucky boy he is, away to a 5-second lead in race number 2, and Linsell needs to keep defending his second place. He's got his hands on it, but he needs to keep a firm grip.
How impactful will this battling be to Mulqueen? Well, Mulqueen comes through and sets the fastest lap of the race. He just set a 2:14.5. The car's behind 17.9, 18.5, just with the incident that they were both trying to avoid at the cutting on that last lap. Now Linsell's got some clear air in front of him. He's going to try and chase this one down. I reckon he's going to eat into this gap, but you know what? Mulqueen's just going to make a no-mistakes race, present some opportunities here for him again, as it did in the TCRs, for him to just get down the road, get his head down, clean pair of heels, nice, easy race win. That's exactly what he's after in race 2.
Now they're on their line, trying to settle into their rhythm after a very, very chaotic first 2 laps in the second of 3 races for Grand Tour as we continue to build up towards more racing, more supports, and qualifying and shootout for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000, their biggest iRacing weekend of the year at the biggest, baddest, best track of them all, Mount Panorama. My goodness, it's just beginning here. Still holding on to that second from Pluck, who we know comes good late on in these races.
Yeah, he's definitely got pace in those last couple of laps. So I'm wondering from Pluck whether or not he's sort of dismayed. Maybe didn't get the exit that he really wanted off of Forest Elba on that last lap, and it just sort of was too close, too much for him to really do with. He was looking for the crisscross. He set it up kind of nicely, and there was nothing between those. Oh, Plucky! He's going to pluck the outside wall.
Sometimes you're plucky, sometimes you're lucky. He'll carry on, not the first driver, not going to be the last to say hello to that wall there.
But how good, how clean, how consistent is this from Alcuin? Oh, just grazes it. You know what? He's gotten away with that one, I reckon.
We've seen much bigger hits already from the Grand Touring cars. So, yep, he carries on in third, not showing any signs of losing any speed or gap to Sean Linsell. Still just bobbling around 5 seconds, the lead for Damon Mulqueen. But I think it's starting to come down. 6 laps still to go, 13 minutes still here. Linsell takes the fastest lap of the race away, but only 0.2 of a second quicker than Damon Mulqueen, who shows his personal best for this race as well. Now you're hoping for a mistake or the tyres to cook off for the race leader, because I don't think Linsell can find enough speed with no other factors present to rattle back a second per lap on the leader.
Yeah, there's no lap traffic to worry about too. The benefit of a 2-minute lap and sprint races is that you generally don't encounter lap traffic as you get around. Thinking back to race 1, Mulqueen's tyres did go off just a little bit, but I get the feeling that some of that might have actually been the dirty air. The GT4 cars don't produce a massive amount of downforce. They definitely do produce a significant amount for the size of the car, the class that they're in, but they're not all about producing aero downforce and aero wash. There was some of the tyres going off for Mulqueen, but I think it could be attributed to that. I think that's just where he was sitting in terms of pace in race 1. Great opportunity for him here. Got to put the drive together. A little bit like Tyson Hammer and the TCRs, just had to put that clean drive together, and away she goes. And we'll see if Mulqueen's got it in him.
All this talk of ride heights and traction controls, but do you know what my favorite engine map is?
The Go Fast one?
It'd be the BMW M4 GT4's red USB stick ECU map BOP 2020. So I think you've got different. I think the manufacturer supplies different USB sticks. You've got to plug in the right one relative to the BOP for the round. So it's the red one for wherever the hell this BOP chart is from for BMW. But for the Mercedes, how about power level 2? So I don't know where that fits in the Super Saiyan spectrum. But that's the ECU you gotta run.
Yeah, but have a look at the air conditioning system they've got going on down there. Look at all of the fuse box down on the right hand side, and then right next to the fuse box, that's everything over there in terms of things. I believe brake monitoring and brake controls on the right hand side of the car.
Racing radios there, so that's good. Having a good look at the fire extinguishing system. Good to know that the pressure's right in the middle there, right in the green zone. Good to have, good to know.
You know, Simon Mazzamo and I were having a discussion about the Porsche Cup settings. The Porsche Cup cars are a really, really good platform because they use so much of the software and everything just so interchangeably. The engines are all relatively similar. The cars are all relatively similar. They just run, obviously with the Porsche Cup cars, they tend to run no ABS, no traction control. But those cars actually do have ABS and traction control within their ECU units for Porsche Cup category racing. They just toggle them off. And then the thing is, you can just, like you said, with the engine mappings for these GT4 cars, you can just go, okay, well, this engine mapping is producing a little bit too much power So from a balance performance setting, you just plug a USB in, download all of the engine mappings, and they might even adjust the top end torque. They might adjust mid-range torque. Altogether, some of the cars may have not enough mid-range torque, so they might just boost those values up, but they can adjust every bit of it right throughout the power curve. As well, and it gives them the opportunity to really bring the cars down together. Or for these cars, again, Porsche Cup, Mercedes, whereby they've got a lot of different platforms running off, a lot of different race cars running off a very, very similar platform. They can just run, they've got the settings all there built and ready to go. And then from a category management perspective and a balance and performance perspective, they just go through all those settings. They go, these will be the closest together for altitude, for length of track, for length of straights, for how the car handles through the corners as well. And then you go, this is the appropriate package to bring these cars nice together. And a lot of opportunity to do that in production car racing.
Matthew Pluck now a second and a half behind Linsell, finding his groove here. Now only 4 seconds behind Damon Mulqueen, the race leader, taking a little bit of time out of him, but there's not too much racing left in this race 2 reverse grid race, where they finish here, sets them on the grid for the final race of this category, race number 3 after this. Taylor Oakes, how's he going? Dan Stevens now found his mojo back after a spin, and he is hunting 4th place back. These two made contact this race, battling for the lead. Now Stevens mayhaps closing him down somewhat again in race number 2. Linsell shows us the speed that he's got, taking the fastest lap.
Yeah, Linsell just took another 10th out of that fastest lap as well, down to a 14.098. The critical factor here for Oakes is that he actually slapped the wall in that instance. So there will be some right-hand side damage to that car, potentially camber and toe and suspension damage on the right front of that car. And you can see that was a good shot, actually, just to show the aero. It's not front right corner of that car's not sitting altogether straight. That dash, by the way, exists on the McLaren in real life. That's exactly what it looks like. Again, just rolls out of the production line, rolls out of the factory like that, slap a roll cage in and they're ready to go in terms of a race car perspective. You can strip a lot of that out. The one that I saw didn't have that center console. They stripped that out, but they left a lot of the other... Oh, no, it did still have that section of the center console.
Because
they roll out with the roll cage.
A carbon fiber crash structure already. Can you see any roll bars around, Jay? Having a look. Okay, you got some there. You got some going on there. There was there's something with the McLarens, both in the GT3 world as well, where they're already a carbon fiber, almost built-in roll cage. Daniel Stevens is lucky that he didn't go for a roll. He's just made a meal out of the dipper. And again, those BMWs, they're quick, but they're so tough to drive. He has been for a full 360. Is there a BMW that hasn't faced backwards at some point this weekend? No.
Yeah, they're just not being compliant under braking, have they? Oh, he straightened it out and nearly saved it. It's that rear end. It's the rear end of the BMW tends to do more Porsche things than I've seen any other car do this weekend.
See, already after Skyline took to the escape road, and that wasn't enough to be able to get the car under control, slow it down. And then as he approached the dipper, it let go on him. But the incident started way before that. Another fastest lap of the race by Sean Linsell as he demonstrates his speed, and he sees Damon Mulqueen a tantalizing 3.8 seconds up the road. With 3 more laps to go in this race, he might stand a chance. Shane Best and Linton Wills are going to be side by side on the pit straight. Oh, a little bit of a squeeze there. Remember, these two made contact at turn 1 on lap 1 as well. But it's clean this time as Linton Wills gets back to 5th place, having been stone dead motherless last after turn 1 on lap 1. Is that straight line speed? That turbo BMW just keeps pulling. The gears are quite spaced out, but when you find a good one, it pulls mightily. He's got the inside. We're on board with the car going around the outside. And they almost touch there as Wills really squeezes him down low inside. But the BMW gets back ahead. This is where we saw Stevens nearly come undone. But look at Best straighten out the braking zone there.
Yeah, much, much better. Once those tyres come underneath that car, it's sort of settled it down really, really nicely. Much more compliant. I can tell you as well, looks like we've lost Denny Vassell and Daniel Stevens are both done for the day. No, both of those drivers no longer in the service, so I think they're done in terms of things not having the greatest of days in those BMWs. So we'll lose 2 of the BMWs. We'll hang on to our final one in Shane Best. And that battle he's thoroughly enjoying. And for Damon Mulqueen, with 4 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock, I reckon we're going to get 2 more laps of this race as they get down the other end. And he's still got enough of a margin to hang on to this one.
He does. You'd be happy in that position to give away 0.2 of a second per lap, 0.3 of a second per lap, just to keep it tidy. But they're not doing that back here. Shane Best got close to the wall. Linton Wills got even closer, and both of them are racing for 5th place here at the moment, which could be the best result for a BMW. If Best can hold on, he's got good speed at the end of the straights, but again, the Achilles heel still that transition from braking to turning into the corners.
Yeah, you just picked up the throttle just so much more complicitly on the exit of Forest Elbow, whereas Wills was definitely pushing to try and get that Mercedes going in the right direction and come back at Shane Best. So it'll be interesting to see what this battle looks like in a lap and a half time, whether or not they'll be a lot closer. Best found something, found another gear, found something in that car. He's definitely got a lot less damage on the car this race than he did compared to last race, but there is still damage out there. Hoping for potentially a clean race number 3.
So definitely 2 more. White flag, last lap board at the end of this one. And Mulqueen stabilising it somewhat because he equalises the same as Sean Linsell. I think luck drops back just a tiny bit.
Yeah, I think they're just going to run out of time because with 1.5 laps left to go, there's nothing in between all 3 of these guys. They're all really, really consistent. Less than 10. What's the biggest margin there? Is Mulqueen to Linsell 0.07 of a second? Less than 0.07 of a second. It's 6.6 on the thousandths.
My favourite comparison for these kind of things is by all accounts and studies, a time it takes to blink is somewhere between 0.15 to 0.3 of a second, depending on fatigue and other things like that. But you're still going, oh, okay, right, well, it takes 0.15 seconds to blink. There's 0.07 between 3 drivers in their lap times there.
Well, I saw that Mazda race that you were commentating as well. Was 9 thousandths at the end for a victory at Daytona Road Course. That was a phenomenal last lap to watch.
Yeah, that always delivers that kind of action. One of America's crown jewels of motorsport there, Daytona, but nothing in Australia can ever usurp Mount Panorama's stranglehold as the home for great racing, unmissable action, and also just one of those revered holy places of the sport. It's the final lap of race number 2 there. Our top 3 make their way up to Mountain Straight. Mulqueen just managing this gap to 2nd place. Mercedes AMG versus Mercedes AMG, and Linsell can't find any traction control, engine map, air conditioning, or fire extinguisher settings. They're going to close 3.6 seconds on this final lap. The only thing that could close it is sitting in the driver's seat of the leading car.
Yeah, maybe trying to have a biff on whilst the other guy's trying to drive a race car on the last lap of Bathurst. Although if that was the case, and obviously your car's going nowhere, so that won't really necessarily work. I was just about to say, I'm pretty sure Linsell found something on this last lap, but something going wrong this race for Matthew Pluck. He was a lot more consistent, a lot more quick sitting in the draft. So all of a sudden, the straight line out and out speed in that McLaren, it's not been enough for Linsell's ERT entry. In this category, he was capable of taking something to him in race 1, but in race 2, and arguably Linsell had to come through behind him and had the harder of the 2 racing prospects. He's just been able to really show his class and extend way out in front.
I do wonder if Pluck does have some damage from some of those wall taps we saw, if the steering's maybe not completely straight or something's going on there, because he was so good at the end of race number 1. That steering wheel looks straight, but there could still be problems as far as the maximum grip he can get through the corners, the stability on the brakes, any of those other little things where you could stay with someone in the slipstream, but once they drop you, they drop you. Clock's about to run out. The checkered flag's waiting at the start-finish line for Damon Mulqueen. He's already had a race win and a round win in the 2-litre Tourers. Well, we get to race number 2 in the Grand Tourers, and he's going to come out the final corner to the checkered flag in front. He is loving this Mount Panorama weekend. With a flash of the headlights, Mulqueen takes the race 2 win and the pole position for race number 3 coming up next.
Yeah, this will be an interesting one to see how this unfolds as well. Linsell will have a slight points advantage. Remember, a first and a second place versus a first and a third. So at least that advantage at the moment goes to Linsell. But pole position, can he translate that in the Damon Mulqueen Mercedes over the Linsell Mercedes? Is he capable of taking that and potentially taking the win in race 3, which will have us very, very tight in terms of the point standings and the overall round result? Could it be 2 from 2 for Mulqueen? That'll be the question in race number 3.
Driving a BMW has been like bull riding this weekend, and it's Shane Best who holds on for dear life to be the best of those cars, ahead of the other ones that have in fact retired, of Daniel Stevens and Danny Vassell. And the rest of the drivers finishing the race. Linton Wills in 6th. Was up and down for him, and same too for Thomas Riley, who's one of the last cars to cross the line in 7th place there. 3.4 seconds, the winning margin in the end from Damon Mulqueen. So the trend stayed of Linsell being able to take a couple of tenths per second out of him every lap, but there was no silver bullet. And, well, could Mulqueen stay ahead in race 3 if he gets a good start? Because Linsell will be all over him from the get-go.
Yeah, that's going to be the critical factor, is how these two cars perform on their cold tyres. We've seen a little bit more wiggling around from the McLaren. I definitely feel it's the weaker of the two cars on cold tyres, and Linsell's really going to be harassing him on lap number 1. Matthew Pluck is an outside chance. If anything happens to those lead 2 drivers and presents an opportunity, that could allow Matthew Pluck to really run away with this thing. He's known quite well for his oval exploits. Been running a little bit in terms of the Ends Car Championship with Matty Pluck. He's just a lovely guy just to be around. You just say, hey man, you know what's happened? Where do you think we've gone? He's really, really good to talk to in terms of his racecraft. Get some feedback, talk to it. Loves an out-and-out battle. He would rather, he's one of those drivers that he'd rather enjoy the battle than run somebody off track. So he's known definitely for his out-and-out pace. He's known for his drivability. He's known for his racecraft. So he's just such a good driver, and I always love to see him doing well.
So we're done with the reverse grid racing. They just line up for race number 3, how they started race number 2, with the caveat that I think we're going to have a couple less GT4 cars, but 2014 to 2020 flashbacks is all Mercedes on the front row with Damon Mulqueen and Sean Linsell. All McLarens on the next, though, with Matt Pluck and Taylor Oakes. Shane Best's BMW will start out of 5th. From Mercedes of Linton Wills and Thomas Riley. No Dan Stevens, no Danny Vassell, even though they would be eligible to start this final race.
Yeah, so I think we're just a couple moments away from going green here as well. Taylor Oakes has had a little bit of support from Cameron Dance, who's been in as well, spotting for him, trying to help him out and trying to achieve something for his McLaren. We'll see if the McLarens can get that good launch. The Mercedes has been quite quick off the start line in all of these races, but I think we're just moments away from seeing how this one unfolds in race number 3.
So how do these GT4s get away from a standing start? Pretty well for the pole sitter, who lays down some 11s on his way to lead the field, single file through turn number 1. Looks like everyone getting away well from their designated grid spots, but then it's oh so close with cold tyres all around as we head up Mountain Straight. It's Shane Best that's going to be of biggest concern. He's got 2 guys behind him. Thomas Riley, though, Tom Riley picking up a spot as Linton Wills doesn't seem to have gotten away very well. He's not up to speed either. So Mulqueen leading, but Wills, don't know what the problems are there, as he's dropped 1 spot and back into 7th. Mercedes stable on cold tyres. How are the McLarens? How's that BMW?
I'll tell you what, Linsell was very, very wide. Didn't get the car pulled up nice and cleanly at the cutting. So he's just wide on the apex, wide the way through. And I think he's starting to just sort of catch himself back up at the moment. That's allowed Mulqueen to just dance clear. And Mulqueen's got a lot of opportunity right here, but he's got to not cook those tyres. He's got to just run it nice and clean. If he can break this toe, he's in with a hot chance. This is what happened to Linsell. Sorry, not Linsell, Linton Wills at the back end of the start. It just looks like he just didn't fire the car off or a stall or something's going on there.
He was on the grid, but then did the countdown surprise him? Was he not ready? Did he stall the car? Was it in the wrong gear? Did he try to find something and then the button or the pedal wasn't mapped? And he does get away. Seems like he's up to speed now, but definitely weird dramas. He was on the grid, the lights went out, everyone but him went. So over the top of the mountain, complete for the first lap. Mulqueen's lead, 0.8 seconds. 20-minute race once again. Might he be able to manage that? Because Linsell, his biggest rival last race, still under pressure from these McLarens, and they are clean and tidy for the start of a new race. Definitely no damage now for Pluck, if there was some before.
Yeah, he's going to settle himself in. He's going to be okay there. So just went back and had a look. Will stalled the car. He actually stalled the car as they went to get away. He had to refire the car and get away. So that's actually what caused all that.
That's the traction control setting set to stunt.
That's a good one. That's a good one, Dave. Yeah, so you can just sort of hear it. Picks up the throttle, creeps, car's gone. Then he has to refire it up, and you'll watch the clutch. Watch the lights on the dash here as he gets it refired. Finds the gear, back into first, really bleeds the clutch out, and then race over basically from there.
Yeah, if you try to get a tidy getaway and you stall the car, the next getaway is always against the rev limiter. And just make sure you don't damn stall it again. Whether it's a clean getaway or not, you just want to get away. So you see, he was playing with the clutch for that standing start. It crept and then stalled, not what Linton Wills wanted. Luckily, we're not IndyCar. We've got an onboard starter. So no dramas in the end there. No unnecessary safety cars. And Queen, on his way to a second lead here. He's gotten out of the blocks so well compared to the speed it looked like Linsell had over him last race.
Yeah, well, as he found something, as he just found a little bit of pace. Remember, there was that mistake from Linsell. Is he compounding? Has he made a couple more mistakes in terms of pace? He's starting to fall further back. He's lost 1/10 in the first 3 sectors. I've got 6 sectors on my data. He's lost 1/10 of a second in all the first 3 sectors all the way up and across the top, and he's just barely managed to creep back into the toe right now. So he's there and thereabouts, but he cannot afford any other errors here, or that toe is gone.
My favorite microsectors graphic is the Nürburgring Nordschleife, where it splits into 11 sectors and one of them is still longer than a minute. So yeah, good to have as much data as you possibly can for comparing laps, comparing qualifying, comparing all of that. You've got data of the straight line speed for the McLaren and Matthew Pluck, that V8 working, and no hint of a lift through the kink at the chase there as he hits 265 kilometers an hour before putting the brakes on in third place with a great view of Linsell now starting to catch your race leader. Taylor Oakes, though, has dropped back.
Yeah, how good was the wheel work, though, from Matthew Pluck? He just saw the car slightly rotate. Oh, day over for Taylor Oakes.
So Shane Best goes through to 4th, Riley through to 5th, Linton Wills through to 6th. He's the last car running. That nose is broken for sure. How did that happen for Oakes down at the chase? Oh, is it too much curb there? Oh, the car's bouncing, and then it's the grass. He touches the grass, trying to break into the corner. And, it pitches into the concrete. The gravel slowed him, but it turned him. And he's trying to get it to pit lane. And we're definitely going to need Bert down there at the end of the chase with everything he's dragged back on the track.
Saw you guys talking about Bert over there in the chat. And, yeah, definitely needed him for the cleanup of some of the marbles between this race. But Linsell started to respond on that last time by, set the fastest lap of the race, took 0.2 of a second out of race leader Mulqueen. He actually put 0.3 of a second over Matthew Pluck at the moment. So Pluck is at risk of falling out of this draft and all of a sudden falling back from these guys who close up and across the top. Indeed, started to take some of that margin out. But just for Taylor Oakes, just think back think back to race number 2, whereby on lap number 1, down into the chase, he had a similar moment. The car zigged, then it zagged, picked up the slightest amount of grass on the right-hand side, race over. So that he's missed that in 2 races by millimeters of keeping that car under control and keeping his race alive.
Tank of fuel might clean your engine, but it's not going to clean that kind of damage. As we take another look at it from on high, gets a bit of a bounce of the curb there that doesn't quite seem necessary, and as he gets back to the line, just touches the grass right at the start of the braking zone. The car gets sideways as it goes through the gravel and ends up going to the wall. Big damage on the nose. He only just managed to limp it to pit lane where he is now. I suspect some of those radiators you were talking about went as well, meaning there's just one more McLaren left on track. Matthew Pluck sitting in 3rd.
It's really, really interesting actually opening the hood up on the McLaren as well. The radiator on that thing is actually mounted at an angle. You saw the front grille intakes that they had there on that shot. The radiator's mounted at like a 45-degree angle. It's actually mounted to feed the air back out through the hood. So what happens is the air comes in and comes up through the vents into the radiators at an angle, and then continues up and out the hood, and the radiator's mounted to allow that airflow to happen as well.
Lotus Exige radiator in the nose is mounted at 90 degrees, which is so the air comes in underneath it and goes straight up through it and out the vents in a Lotus Exige. And,
I think it's somewhere between a 30 and a 45-degree angle. I don't think it's at either end. I think it'd be somewhere in the middle. But yeah, the reason the Lotus that's not a popular take from the Lotus is aerodynamic performance. Mounting air moving directly upwards does not do very much for you.
The Exige also, they don't care about also fitting some luggage there. There's no luggage compartment, not much interior space either. It's purely a pragmatic kind of performance decision, and not, can we fit the radiators in here effectively and then also have room to fit a bag or two? Not something they aim for.
Yeah, I mean, you got a little bit of that, and weight saving in the McLaren, you'd obviously take that tub out, but yeah, it's really, really interesting to have a look at it. I got the opportunity actually to have a look at the 2023 Porsche Carrera GT4 car. That thing is a sight to behold, looking at where all the bump stops and things are placed. You know, the benefit of cars with this sort of performance level is that they're always thinking race spec, right? They're thinking about how can we adjust the car nice and quickly? How can we save some time in the pit lane? The driver comes in and says, yeah, the car's wandering all over the road just a little bit. I want a little bit softer in that rear bar. I want a little bit softer in the stops, and the stops are literally there. One click on the dial, you literally lift the rear boot up, click of a dial, job done, suspension adjusted. That's how quick and simple it is, and it'll be much the same for all these cars up and down the grid. It was just such a good weekend sitting in, having a look at race cars, having a look at the things that they do, having a look at why they do them as well from a racing perspective. Maintenance is obviously one of them, adjustability is the other one.
Closing up now for the race lead, 5 laps to go before completed at the end of this. So just getting towards the middle of the final of 3 races for the V8SCOPS 1000 supports at Mount Panorama. That's your whole top 3 look to be closing in. This seems like the part of the race where Sean Linsell maybe hits his stride a little bit. Mulqueen quick out of the blocks, but Linsell had the pace, had the lap times at the end of the race in both of the 2 previous races. Now he's right there. Mercedes versus Mercedes with a McLaren behind. And the fastest lap from everyone on track last time did belong to Linsell.
Yeah, it's starting to come back at them. It was really interesting as well looking at data and real world stuff. These are quite temperamental cars, and they want to run themselves within very, very narrow sort of windows, and that means temperatures. They want to get the temperature in the engine, they want to get the temperature in the transmission up to not only a minimum temperature, but also keep that average temperature running between. Got the opportunity to see some blanking going on for the Mercedes that loves a transmission temperature somewhere above sort of 90 degrees Celsius, likes it in and around 100 degrees Celsius in terms of that transmission temperature. Well, the weather at Sandown a couple of weeks ago was very, very cold, no temperature coming from the intake area. They were actually sitting there putting electrical tape over the exhaust vents of the transmission to try and raise that transmission temperature. It's, you know, they'd love to be in an operating temperature right within that range, and the instant that they're not, they start throwing all sorts of errors. Maintenance goes out the window. You might do a transmission, you might do an engine. So really, really interesting from that perspective to see the level I got to go to, let alone the drivers running into the wall. How close was that from that Matthew Pluck that time by?
They're going to let him take that one home at the moment. It's like, yeah, that's all yours. You're going to pay for it too. But he's so committed at this point, and now he's within 1 second of the race leader, still trying to go with Sean Linsell, but the top three were sort of out to 1.5 seconds from first to third. Now just 0.8 at the end of the chase, and Linsell closes in on Mulqueen, and the curb gets a bit of a workout as well.
I was just about to say, Mulqueen had to catch that car. Wasn't sorted, didn't have his throttle down 100% sorted on the way out of the chase. He misses the apex at the last corner as well. The rear end of this Mercedes is starting to wriggle all over the track, Dave. I think he's vulnerable. And the problem is Linsell's not quite close enough to have a crack yet. And if he gets good drive off here, no, he caught the inside curb. He's wide, Dave. He's vulnerable. He's going to be real vulnerable at Griffin's.
So now down to 0.7 between first and third, but it's the gap first to second that really matters. Linsell's right underneath in the best slipstreaming position, but Mulqueen's in the best position to defend Griffin's up the hill. There's some overlap between them. The inside line belongs to Mulqueen. The wrong side of the road belongs to Linsell. And as happens oh so often, you try to attack, you end up on the wrong line, and you maybe go backward, but can around the outside, Matthew Pluck did anything at the cutting. It's so gutsy, it's so brave. You're not going to scare Pluck, and he'll go round the outside of the cutting and then up over the crest here. He'll demand the space. He'll take second, and Damon Mulqueen loves to see that happen in his mirrors. Towards the end of this race, he now leads 1.3 seconds over Pluck. So brave into second place.
Yeah, this is starting to get really, really antsy. And have a look at the margin that Mulqueen's now put. It's now 1.3 seconds. That McLaren's got to be very, very quick in a straight line. And for Linsell, he thought, oh, yeah, this is my best opportunity. Well, no, it wasn't. At the moment, this has Damon Mulqueen leading the round. So this has implications for the round results.
He's leading the way still from Pluck in second. What's the McLaren speed like now? It's unleashed into second place. 1.2 seconds behind the race leader, though. Needs to find a couple of tenths on this lap to get back within the draft, to have a chance to challenge for the win. If that's what he wants to do.
He took a little bit of time out of him in the middle of Conrad, and then the Mercedes just had slightly better top end speed. So it's the mid-range of the McLaren that's better. And he's struggling for a little bit of front-end grip. You see the understeer at that time by, and now he's got Linsell right underneath his rear wing. So it looks like this is all playing into Mulqueen's hands. He's got an opportunity here. He's got to drive this clean for the next half a lap. Linsell missed the apex at Murray's that time.
You love a three-way fight like this. You love when it's for the lead. Shane Best is in best form at the moment in fourth, because look at this from Riley in fifth place. He's exploring a couple parts of the track here. Beautiful Bathurst, scenic view, but he's been through the gravel, he's been through the runoff, and he's maybe starting to feel that fatigue at the end of 3 tough races. The weather also changing a little bit. Some clouds blowing in, track cooling off for this one as we go partly cloudy, so not a complete rerun of some of the previous races. The track and tyre condition could be slightly different. Good lap just completed so far. Some good sectors for Matthew Pluck as well. Up the mountain straight there, he closed within 1 second of Damon Mulqueen. 5 minutes can be a long time in racing.
Yeah, and Linsell's actually fallen a little way back off the end of this one now, so he's made a little bit of a mistake. Did you see the storm clouds brewing up over the cutting as they come out of Griffin's Bend? Well, there's some storm clouds brewing out on the racetrack at this point in time. A couple minutes left, last race of the night. Who knows what could happen when we get to the end of this one?
You'll just have to wait and see. Top 3 closing in once again after the side-by-side fight for Pluck and Linsell over second place that let Damon Mulqueen start to get away. Looks like he's so under threat now at the elbow. Pluck closing some car lengths under braking there. Definitely in the slipstream. They pick up speed downhill so quickly. you blink and you're in the 200 km/h plus bracket, where the air resistance and the slipstream really plays a factor. 2 km/h extra for Pluck all the way through here toward the braking zone, where again he looks monstrous.
Yeah, did you see the rear end of that Mercedes wiggling as he applied the brakes? The suspension wasn't compliant. The tyres weren't really pressed to the floor, much the way that Damon Mulqueen necessarily would have liked when he come down to the chase. I reckon once he gets past, he's not necessarily going to have a response. The car just looks terrible under braking performance at the moment, and that's where Matthew Pluck looks the most confident.
12.4 kilometers still, because it's 2 more laps of the most famous, most beloved, most revered, most challenging motor racing circuit on this side of the planet, Mount Panorama, and to decide not only the race winner, but a round winner in V8SCOPS Support's Grand Touring. Mulqueen is tactical about what line he takes, where he sends the slipstream that Pluck and Linsell so desire to try to close him in and hunt him down for the trophy and for the biscuits.
Oh, indeed, the biscuits. We were talking just before we went live about which of the biscuits are the best biscuits to have with your tea and coffee. Right now, it's those racing biscuits that I want to be enjoying. It's that win at the end of the day. So, to be perfectly honest, to answer your question, Scotch Fingers, Tim Tams, no, the biscuits at the end of a race.
Biscuit in the hand is worth 2 in the pantry, for sure. I don't know, stretch that way too thin on that. Never again, but my goodness. 1 second covers first, second, third, in front of all of the fans at the top of the mountain, all of them giving a little kiss to the curb, braking as late as they dare as you're blind over the crested skyline, riding a roller coaster as the downhill wants the car to run on, but you've got to slow it up before the track tightens at the dipper. Get onto your line there so you can get the throttle open early, carry speed down to the elbow, which has been the scene of some passing, but also some controversy so far this weekend at Mount Panorama. Closer than they've ever been approaching the start of the final lap. Linsell is on Pluck. Pluck, massive speed in that low-slung aerodynamic McLaren, hunting down Mulqueen. Mulqueen's vulnerable on the brakes at the end of the straight here, so expect Pluck to close some car lengths. Expect Linsell to look to the inside for second place, and that scares Pluck away from turning in. It puts both of them off the optimal line, and approaching the final lap, it gives an extra car length reprieve, some breathing room for Damon Mulqueen, round winner in the touring cars, looking to be race winner, round winner in Grand Touring. He would make himself a legend of the mountain, but 6.2 kilometers of challenge awaits before he can lay claim to that.
Yeah, and Linsell was wide once again down at Murray's. That's the corner that's troubling him the most. The biggest time gain, the problem that Matthew Pluck has got at this point in time is that he's very vulnerable down through the S's. Again, the car wasn't compliant. The car wasn't settled. The car wasn't in a great position. Linsell's wide. Linsell's making mistakes at all the wrong spots. And this is, to be perfectly honest, this is probably the worst driving I've seen out of Sean Linsell. He's so quick. He's so good normally. And he's generally one of those drivers that just parks it in all the right spots. Today, he hasn't done that. Very unlike Sean Linsell drive this one.
And it's divided attention for Pluck in second. He so wants to be able to attack that race lead. Last time he got close, he then had to fend off Linsell from behind. He put him not where he wanted on this final lap. He closed the car length in the cutting on the brakes there this time, and he's so committed across the top of the mountain. Do or die for Matt Pluck. He wants to put that McLaren on the top step, try to take a race win, so he's giving it all, giving it everything in pursuit of closing down Damon Mulqueen to put the pressure on down Conrod Straight into the chase, because this is the final lap. This is your last opportunity. Either you do or you leave Mount Panorama wondering what could have been. Out of the elbow for the final time for these drivers in this race, in this category at Mount Panorama, and it's all about the power, about the slipstream, about the longest straight into the fastest corner in Australian motorsport. On board with third, only 7 tenths away from a race lead, under the gantry, over the crest, towards a braking zone. You've already decided where you're going to brake. It's as late as you dare. And again, Linsell so committed, so late. This time he does shove the nose down the inside. Pluck has got him covered off, and Damon Mulqueen can count his lucky stars once again that infighting between second and third has let him off the hook for consecutive race victories at Mount Panorama in the Mercedes-AMG GT4. The checkered flag goes to the Kiwi, Damon Mulqueen. Pluck remains in second, and Linsell, we had him tapped on the shoulder to maybe strike back with a win here, but he's dropped from second to third and couldn't do anything in this final race. Shane Best, fourth place for a BMW that has looked so scary around this place.
Yeah, and that all came from the fact, remember the last lap, the second last lap that we looked at? Mulqueen was wide, didn't get the car pulled up. Matthew Pluck made a ton of time on him as they come down through the S's, but it was then as they got off the S's, he just didn't look settled. The car didn't look settled. That meant that he was way, way, way too far back to potentially get it done down at the other end of Conrod. And it was, remember we talk about in car racing, setting up your passes, being in all the right spots at all the right times. And in that last lap, Damon Mulqueen was the guy who set it all up perfectly, drove the car nice and cleanly, put it in all the right spots. It's really, really easy to defend when you've got 7/10 of a margin behind you. It's much tougher when that margin's 3/10.
Results from Race 3 V8SCOPS Supports Grand Tour category. The Mercedes takes the cake for Damon Mulqueen. Back-to-back race wins. Great performance from him. Matt Pluck gave it all but gets second. So did Sean Linsell. 2 looks to the inside of the chase, just couldn't outbrake a McLaren in his Mercedes for Revolution Racing Team, finishing third. Shane Best just gets to rack up a couple more points and results in race 3 here in fourth. Tom Riley and Linton Wills not as fortunate in their Mercedes, and Taylor Oakes hearing that it was contact with the wall up the top of the mountain that broke the suspension that saw the car pull under braking and then end up in the wall at the chase. He could have been there, but this is a cruel, cruel track, and that's why you know nothing is for free, nothing is easy, and victory tastes all the sweeter for it.
Yeah, it was a great drive. Did a really, really good job. Car in all the right spots, in all the right positions. Did everything he needed to do off that get-go, and he just let the guys behind him squabble. Very, very smart. Heads-up driving from Mulqueen. Did everything he needed to do. Round victory for him. Great drive.
So the big weekend of V8SCOPS at Mount Panorama continues with support from Wilson's Industrial Sales and OKMS Media and Graphics. Still much, much more coming your way here on SimSpeed TV. We take a little break, and when we come back, it's the support category with those old style V8s, ones we're well familiar with from years gone by. Should be a healthy grid, should be a good noise, and it's the kind of car that has Bathurst in mind when the teams put them together. Stay with us on SimSpeed. More support category action coming before we get into the big one, the big deal, V8SCOPS 1000 at Mount Panorama, qualifying and shootout still to come on SimSpeed. Back with you on SimSpeed TV at Mount Panorama. It's V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 weekend, and boy, is it a big one. We've had 2-litre Tourers and their 3 races. We've had Grand Tour and their 3 races in GT4 equipment. Now it's the kind of cars that this mountain was built for, or the kind of mountain that these cars were built for. However you look at it, it's time now for the V8's Support Series 2014 spec Aussie machines on the mountain, and there's a good number of them. They shoot flames, they make a good noise, and the racing should be so competitive with VF Commodores and FG Falcons on the mountain. David Haynes here with Scott Rankin, Jay Kennedy producing our coverage for SimSpeed TV this weekend. Good to get some V8 racing going.
Yeah, one of the critical things about this round as well, Dave, is that they're doing throwbacks to the 2002 entry list for the Bathurst 1000 that year. So you're going to see a lot of retro liveries, and effectively what's happened is that the cars have been thrown up, and then first in, best dressed. You grab whatever car you want to replicate from that grid, you get the opportunity to replicate their paint. So everything from Craig Lowndes and Neil Crompton in the 00 Motorsport Ford, Mark Scaife and Jim Richards, Rick Kelly, Nathan Pretty, Jason Bright, Thomas Mazira, Ambrose Wheel, Glenn Seaton, Owen Kelly, you name it, up and down the field. I think this is one of Mark Larkham's later runs as well in the Larkham Motorsport entry with Will Power. Larry Perkins, Paul Dumbrell, you name it, up and down the field. There's just some really, really cool throwback liveries. Gartander, Jason Bargwana, Wingcup and Noski. Remember that entry all the way back over at the Gary Rogers Motorsports. That was before he really come to the fore with Triple Eight. So a lot of opportunity to visit some cars of years gone by, and that's the best part about it.
Oh, this is a good-looking machine with the lion on the side for Colin Brun with MFR, but it's a nice little twist on it with the kangaroo. I reckon let's bring back flames on racing cars as a scheme, because you know everything old is new again in fashion. So how about in liveries too? Some good looking machinery around here to just tickle that 2002 back part of my brain that remembers tuning into Channel 10 on a Sunday afternoon.
Just thinking about some of these drivers as well. Remember Dale Breed did have a real life run at one stage. He was in with Stephen Owen back in 2002 for Briggs Motorsport. They were in the Caterpillar entry all the way back down there. That's going to be run by Petar Pavlovich in the 216 entry. That's the car out on track right there as well. So, you know, a really good opportunity. Longhurst and Matthew White for Better Electrical. So I believe that one's going to be out on track somewhere. The Kmart entry is going to be run by Middle Finger Racing's Gavin Cox. Perkins Engineering car will be driven by Sean Slater. Orcon car by Craig Mason. Scott Stevens will be in the other of the Perkins Engineering cars. Lindsay Hobbs will be in a Rod Nash Racing entry. I mean, so much of an opportunity to really look at it. And there was the Craig Lowndes entry. I believe this will be the
Perkins for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Bertek. The blue, the yellow, the red, all of your hose fittings, and I think they tried to paint that like an AU Falcon, the greatest car that ever rolled off an Australian production line. That's for sure. And oh yeah, it's a good looking Castrol throwback as well. Let's talk about what's coming for this support category though, today and tonight. They're just wrapping up their warm-up session before they get into a 10-minute qualifying, set them on the grid for an 18-lap race. Then we throw over to V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 qualifying, and I believe their race number 2 then comes up after that. So they get a bit of a break between their 18-lap races. But no break right now as they go straight from warm-up into qualifying. Oh, and it's busy out on track, Scott.
Yeah, so I think it'll be about definitely getting out there and vying for some track position. Craig Mason has also pushed on by as quickly as he possibly can. So everyone's trying to sort of grab that free bit of track and have a look at the guys in the HRT entry cars all the way up at the front end there. They're going to be working together to offer each other a little bit of tow. So Aaron Gilbert and Henry King will be working together at the front end of town.
Looking cars. Nice bit of heritage in the machines we're running in this category. Heritage and all the beautiful, well-presented paints out there. 10 minutes is not a long qualifying session anywhere, let alone 2-minute plus laps around here. How are they going to break up the session, knowing how long tyres can sometimes last on these cars as well?
Well, critically, the first thing you've got to do is get out there, not break any rules getting out on the track. And there's actually one driver who hasn't done that already. Joe Mahoney in the 36 entry looks to me like he's got a speeding on pit lane penalty. He can't do his first flying lap. He'll have to come back to the pit lane. He'll have to run through the pit lane, serve that penalty, then he can start his qualifying performance. No tow-in effect for this station as well. And one of the other drivers is already towed out of the session. And I think we've just lost Scott Stevens as well.
Well, the rumble of V8 hits the mountain for the first time today. This weekend of V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000 action. Still got the Premier category to come tonight, and their qualifying followed by their top 10 shootout will be unmissable action today on SimSpeed. But these guys, they're ready for their time in the sun, and it is sun out at the moment. Track's 38 Celsius. These tyres, have they got one good flying lap in them? Have they got two? In these conditions, we're about to see the first flying laps, and what kind of time is going to get you on the front row for this first 18-lap race.
And remember, cast your eyes and your minds back around as well. Dylan Gray managed to snap the win from Sandown, so he did a phenomenal job all the way back then and there as well. So there's a few drivers in this field that'll think they will have the opportunity to crack on. I actually managed to drive with Dylan Gray at the Bathurst 1000 official race last weekend, and he was in a little bit of confidence. He's a little bit younger, 17 years of age. One of the biggest things that he's got to learn at the moment is that when he's under pressure, he tends to push too hard, tends to drive a little bit further in over his head, and that's where the mistakes will come. This will test him today. He drove a little bit in over his head, had an option for an 8th place finished in the official Bathurst 1000 last weekend in the Australian server, threw it away with 2 laps left on the clock. He went from 8th, put the car in the fence, back to 10th, just barely brought it home in 10th. So did manage to rescue a top 10 finish, but it would be what could have been for Dylan Gray then. Hopefully learned his lessons. Can he take 2 in a row?
Whose is this? Is this an FPR scheme or something from that era? Kind of throws me a little bit seeing the full retro schemes on a car that's from sort of halfway between then and now. The paint is 20 years old. The car is 10. So it's kind of, okay. This a little bit confusing, but the speed ramps up on Mount Panorama. The 2-litre Tourers were hitting speeds at 250 k's an hour. Then the GT4s hit 260. Well, how about 293 for Dylan Gray as he navigated the chase and then to close this lap out?
Yeah, this will be a stunning lap. If he can get this down, get it pulled up in this Seaton liveried car, this could send him towards the front end of town. The problem for everyone up and down the field at the moment is finding that track position. Dylan Gray's had clear air out in front of him, 204.684. That's quite a reasonable lap, although he'll have to push on here. And his next problem will be get back in the pits, get a fresh set of rubber on, and see if we can get another crack at this mountain.
Yep, it looks one and done for a lot of them as they immediately back out after crossing the line. First tranche of lap times coming in. Dylan Gray's time still stands. There's a lot of commotion further back on the track, though. Doesn't look like clean laps for a lot of those drivers going past the Motor Racing Museum now to cross the start-finish line. Almost 10 times in, but you saw at least one car off the road there, and it looked like it had caused a bit of a traffic jam for others on flying laps. Looking at Joshua King right now in the 91. Now this has got a little bit of Gary Rogers Motorsport about it as well. You know what I mean.
Yeah, this is the Gary Rogers Holden Commodore doing a phenomenal job here. Remember, they had 2 entries for Gary Rogers Motorsport in that year. It was the 34 and the 35. Behind the wheel of the 34 was Garth Tender and Jason Barguana. It was Jamie Wincup and Mark Noski in the Valvoline Repco livery car back then. It's done a really good job with translating that car and that scheme across to the AutoServe entry. The front half of it doesn't necessarily look all that GRM, but the back half of it certainly does. So it looks to me a little bit of personal flair that's been added to that car, and boy, doesn't that look pretty.
No purple sectors here for Joshua King, but what he does have is a nice little bit of clean road, and you hope, can he get around and then through the lane and get another flying lap. I think
I don't
needed
think you
5
will.
minutes. No, because you need basically 2 whole lap times, so about 4 minutes, 8 seconds. He had clean laps there, but that might be his only shot on that set of tyres. No time yet from Henry King. No time yet from James Anderson, but he's got a purple sector and then, I guess, didn't finish it cleanly. So we'll see what the second group of runs does for the leaderboard, but it's still Dylan Gray from Dion DeGraff, from Aaron Gilbert, from Jamie Davis as our first 2 rows after the first run of drivers.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they're going to crack on and have another crack. The critical thing, I think, at the back end of the field... Oh, Dylan Gray was one of the drivers that actually towed, so he won't get another lap. That's his best opportunity to get a lap in, and he won't get another attempt now. As he was actually coming to start a second flying lap. Remember, no escape rule in effect. My word, from Dan Stevens. That is a very, very beautiful Kmart car.
You became quite Kiwi channeling your Craig Murphy halfway through that. It's a good-looking car. How are the times going to look? Here's another driver without one yet, Joe Mahoney. And like we just talked about in this 10-minute session, how long it takes to get around, put new tyres on, do an outlap, and then get on another flyer. This is probably it. Your only chance for Joe Mahoney to look inside of the top 10. This lap is going to have to count. You go so quick, and you don't see the brake lights until after the kink at the cutting there. Still got to slow the car up big time, get it on a good line to feed the throttle back in. All of that horsepower still untamed from the era of 2014. They were lost nothing as far as horsepower since then. Final corner, still tricky despite it being a simple,
It's not enough
paper
time.
90 degree, and time counts.
The critical thing for that lap was both of those guys are right on the cusp. Anyone behind them, the current lap that they're on, that's all they'll get. This is their only attempt. And the critical thing for me, Dave, is when they rolled off a pit lane, did you see the volume of cars that rolled off together? A lot of those cars have been compromised. There haven't been representative lap times set. In actual fact, there's a car that's sitting in between, I think about Nick Parker on the road and Daniel Stevens. Sean Slater, he hasn't set a representative lap time. This is all he'll get. When he crosses the line down here, if there's no time, he starts from the back end of thing. There's a couple of drivers. There's somebody that's just rolled off. There's a driver at Griffin's, will not get a lap time in, and Sean Slater's not running on. He's done.
My oh my, rolling out of the throttle, trying to stay out of the way. There's a few drivers who are going to be disappointed by the chaos and flurry of this 10-minute session. And Dan Stevens, he's 20th at the moment. He's already warmed himself up to the mountain in a BMW. This car is a totally different beast, though apparently equally as difficult to drive. His qualifying is done. No improvement on 20th. Stephen Adams, no time. But James Anderson, no time, but his sectors, they are hot. Purple, first sector. If he finishes this cleanly, it could be pole, it could be the front row, it could be in the top 10, but he's hanging it all out there and he needs to get around.
I don't think he'll get it in.
Finish line in 40 seconds. When the clock stops, qualifying stops. The way this session is formatted, it is a hard and fast 10 minutes, and there are a lot of drivers with pace that might end up disappointed.
Yeah, and you got to start from the rear end. And remember, it's a 45-minute race, equivalent of, I think we'll get the 18 laps in that time period. But the problem for these guys is that there is 2 sprint races effectively on offer. The Holden currently has an issue whereby it's not able to take service in pit lane. The race for this duration will be closed. You take any damage on, you've got to wheel with that damage to the end of the race.
James Anderson made it to the checkered flag in time, but his lap time, 22 thousandths short of displacing Dylan Gray from the pole. There's 18 laps ahead of us, but in a field this size, you don't want to start too deep on the grid. Let's look at that grid now as the V8s get ready to roar in the supports for V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. Dylan Gray on pole, 2 minutes 4.7 is a good time. James Anderson couldn't match it by just 22 thousandths. That's your front row. The times are close again. On the row behind, Dion DeGraff, he was a third of a blink of an eye away from pole, but he starts on row number 2 in front of Aaron Gilbert in 4th. Then you've got Matt Haywood and Jamie Davis, more very beautifully presented cars, 5th and 6th. Henry King, 7th. Gavin Cox in 8th. Another beautiful throwback machine. The Holdens are doing well for themselves. Craig Mason and Tim Nicol, those are our top 10, Scott.
Yeah, we'll move one row further back to 11th and 12th will be Varga and Bowen. Deeper in the pack here for the Double O Motorsport car. Liam Jacobs and Peter Pavlovich are going to be on 13th and 14th. 15th and 16th is going to be Jonathan Beekoff and Tyson Hanmer. Tyson quite deep in the pack for where he would necessarily like to be. Colin Bruns and Joe Mahoney 17th and 18th. 19th and 20th are going to be Daniel Stevens and Nick Parker. And this is where the times start to run out. 21st place is Joshua King. Scott Stevens off alongside of him. These were the last time set.
Now you see some drivers who struggled in that short qualifying session and didn't get to complete times. I guess they get gridded by iRacing then from further back here. You can see there's our safety car, unless that would be a really, really weird specker car to fit in here. 10-second board's already been shown. They're ready to do the difficult standing start for these cars. Tall gear ratios for Mount Panorama. Lights are on. Lights hold them, and now the lights go off, and 18 laps of racing gets underway. Difficult start deep in the field there, but your pole sitter Dylan Gray, no troubles whatsoever. Through turn 1, he gets to take the full racing line and light up the power on cold tyres. An excursion through the gravel from one of our GRM lookalikes. Jamie Davis' good qualifying gets undone in the field. Heading up Mountain Straight for the first time, picking up speed, first and second, well and truly away. The battling happens behind them. They've got to think about tyre management at an early stage in a race like this.
And remember, critically here, it's about survivability. You cannot take repairs. Pit lane is unusable for this race. And there's one car that's already found the barriers. It's a 111 car. He's going to make further contact with these guys as well. That will be race over for Colin Bruns. He won't return to the track.
He's not the only driver with damages, parts, dust, particle, debris flies everywhere around the cutting. Dylan Gray holding on to his race lead across the top of the mountain. Fans see them in anger for the first time in racing laps. James Anderson still going with him though. DeGraff with Aaron Gilbert now starting to put some pressure on him. It goes Ford Holden. And they love to see that, but the safety car gets called for the damage and the disabled cars that we've seen at the cutting. It gives the drivers a chance to catch their breath after a frantic little opening lap there. And we will also have a chance to look at what happened for cars like Danny Vassell and Colin Bruns.
Bruns was just so wide at Griffin's and caught the outside barrier. That shot him back across into the inside barrier. And then I'm interested to see where Danny Vassell, because Vassell was down the back end of the field as well. So I get the feeling that he's been left with nowhere to go. So this is Grons. And he got a wiggle on, he got another wiggle on, he got a third wiggle on, and then that's where it ended up in the fence. And see that? Just shot out and across, and I get the feeling Vassell's just been left with just about nowhere to go. Heavy contact the inside barrier, and that's about it. It's a race done for both of those guys. They don't even make 3 kilometers into the race before their days are done.
Trust us, there's a race car there somewhere. We'll get a camera on it, I bet. But yeah, I think from that other incident there, you saw the car was up against the wall and then it found a little seam in the concrete where the marshal's post is here. It's under control, bang, spears him across the track into the car that is the steering broken and comes to a stop in the shade.
Yeah, and of course, we've got no camera angles to point at that exact specific spot. Well done, Danny Vassell. He's playing hide and seek the old-fashioned way. Oh, we found one. It was a flash of it. There we go. Well, he won hide and seek up until that last camera angle.
So safety car out on track. Porsche controls the field and begins to close them all back up after a nasty opening lap there. The cars with full fuel tanks really did look so skaty on cold tyres there, and who has made some gains in the short flurry of racing that we did get. Well, the top 5 are all still as they qualify, with Henry King jumped some spots, Craig Mason jumped 2, and Tim Nichols remains where he qualified. Shane Bowen and Jonathan Bykoff both grabbing some spots on that opening lap there as well.
So we're going to get a Tim Nicol onboard shot, because I think this was from the initial release, because I was looking deeper in the pack, and Tim Nicol was the one driver I sort of saw that didn't get a great initial get-go, and I think that's kind of caused them all to be bottled up down at the end here. But there was one driver who ran it really, really wide, and that's Jamie Davis that goes around the outside right there. So Nicol loses one spot on the inside, gains one with the car off of the line, and unfortunately the McDougall Motorsports entry from 2002 that had Dougal McDougall and Alan Gurr's Pepsi entry for Danny Vassell didn't make it much further than the first lap for him. Disappointing day for those guys.
Now, unlike a Porsche Cup car, you can't just go and program traction control or ABS into these cars. They just ain't wired for it. And you saw the challenge that presented on that first lap, both to get the car away off the line, also to get it stopped and turned through the opening corners, and even in the case we saw there, to put the traction down out of Griffin's Bend and then across the curbing there. We are bottling up behind the safety car. I want to take a look at what the lights might be doing on that Porsche.
Yeah, they're pulling away. I just said it on the NSYN communications that it's pulling away from the field. And how popular was this that Aussie Mail car that we just saw as well? I love that car. During its racing days, it was always quite pretty. It'll be up to Dylan Gray to control this start, and another good opportunity. Got away from the initial jump well, looked after the tyres. He's in a really, really good spot and set up for this race, but I get the feeling that James Anderson had a little bit more pace he wasn't able to show in qualifying. There'll be a couple guys that will be doing the same, and Dion de Graaf, if I know anything about Dion de Graaf, he will not leave anything standing by. He will absolutely have a crack at this one.
Front of the field goes Ford Holden, Ford Holden, Ford Holden, Meat Pies, Kangaroos. We're ready to get racing. Safety car takes away one lap of the racing, but we're not a hard up time certain race here, so we don't lose as much from a safety car as we would have in that kind of situation. Dylan Gray, though, he's eaten up some of that time. He doesn't want to go too early. He doesn't want to get through his fuel or his tyres when he knows there's still 16 more laps in front of him, and James Anderson goes with him. They were so close to each other in qualifying. They're so close to each other in race pace here as well.
Dylan Gray had a big wiggle on the brakes down into Hell Corner, so certainly not 100% all set up and tied in. And well done, Lachlan Horan, deeper in the pack under safety car conditions. We had something like this happen in V8 Vets the other night. Was somebody, it was actually a safety car in the early phases of the race that set the fastest lap. So same things happened here today. It's always funny when you see fastest lap set by guys down the tail end of the field in these sorts of conditions.
A 3-minute 32 that won't stand as the fastest lap of the race for very long. A couple of drivers on this restart struggling with braking, turning in the camber at Griffin's Bend. Such a challenging corner to face so early in the lap, the end of a long straight like Mountain Straight, just past Bo Albert. But up front, they're almost scuffing the wall. They're definitely scuffing the suspension. And here's a challenge on James Anderson having a look in such an unconventional place. He wants to show Dylan Gray he's not afraid to attack anywhere, anytime around the mountain. And he knows that Dylan Gray, while he's leading, might have some weaknesses. He senses that off this restart, and he just wants to put him in an uncomfortable spot, but he's not been able to pass. It brings the rest of them oh so close.
I tell you what, Dylan Gray had that car at a 45-degree angle pointing to the right-hand side of the road. He's under pressure. He is driving in over his head a little bit. He's got to breathe. He's got to calm this one down. He's got a spotter. The SLM guys will be there, and they'll talk to him a lot about driving this car, about racing this car. Now he's got to pull it up. Now he's got to cover things when they get down here to the chase. And remember, there's still a lot of racing yet to come. There was a little lift there from James Anderson. He knew he'd have to get in behind these guys, and de Graaf's now there as well and attached to them.
290 kilometers an hour down to about 80 at the chase. A big stop, and Dylan Gray survives. But with all of this, the front of the field closes in to put pressure on the race leader. And we've still got 15 more laps. They're going to have to keep this pace up if we're going to get it done within the time certain window so we don't infringe on SCOPS qualifying. But this is a fantastic little curtain raiser. Beautiful cars, great noise, great racing, and so much pressure on Dylan Gray. Up mountain straight, tyres now, after a full lap of racing after that safety car, should be where you expect them. The fuel burns off, and the fuel burns off, and our top 7 are getting away from Gavin Cox, Stephen Varga, Tim Nicol, completing the top 10 at the moment. What's the pressure like on Dylan Gray, though?
Have a look at the cars that are all banked up in him behind him. He is the cork in the bottle at the moment. You don't want to be the cork in the bottle as the race leader. The biggest thing that I'm seeing out of Dylan is that car is wiggling everywhere. So although he's got control at the moment, he's got to look after these tyres. These tyres aren't going to make the halfway distance at the moment, just the way that he's driving. He's got to breathe. He's got to back things up. He's got control of the field. Stop worrying about what's in your rearview mirror. Start worrying about what's in front of you, because if you look in the rearview mirror across the mountain, that thing is going to bite and your day is going to be done.
Car length in it as they head down through the S's after the skyline, through the dipper, always lifting that inside front tyre, trying to land and plant the car to pick the throttle up smoothly. How about some action down at the elbow? Not yet, as Anderson remains in behind, straightens the car up before he starts to feed in the throttle. Over 600 horsepower, heading downhill, already at 240 kilometers an hour and climbing, punching a massive hole through the ass. Here's your drama at the elbow. The elbows are out, and there's already some panel damage back there. So the race lead, DeGraff a tiny bit behind. What about up front? Gray holds the line, holds the race lead, but it's tense stuff already.
And remember that Jamie Davis was the driver that just got contact back there with Daniel Stevens. So Davis was off the road at turn number 1 on lap number 1. This is an attempted recovery effort. There's somebody falling massively through the back. I get the feeling that it was Tyson Handler was actually off at the chase. And now have a look at the battle that's up front as well.
He almost gets run up the back. Gray trying to hold on to the race lead, can't break as deep as James Anderson can, who goes around the outside for the race lead. Deeper in the field here at the chase, the replay picks up that those curves can be so violent, and it pitches them sideways. For the race lead though, Gray, great run up mountain straight, but he can't get around the outside. He can't get all the way clear on the leader's rub, and they touch, and James Anderson goes back through to the race lead. He's dropping backwards, Dylan Gray, because the rest of the field are right there, ready to throw him back to 4th place. DeGraff in a second. Aaron Gilbert's got the fastest lap of the race, and he goes through into 3rd.
Yeah, Dion DeGraff, again, was just right there, sniffing about, was waiting for something to happen, put the car in all the right spots. This is where experience matters. The kid's got pace. He's showed that in qualifying. It was the fastest. He put it on pole position, but it's racecraft. That is the biggest weapon that Dylan Gray needs to get into his arsenal. The other part of that is to get unsettled really, really easily. And if somebody's rubbing and banging and grinding, I can tell you right now, that V8 supercar is absolutely like a pressure cooker. Not only is he going to settle himself back down, he's the faster car, and he'll feel that, and now he's going to find a way back by.
All gear ratios do you use first or second at the elbow? Depends on how you feel the track is, how you feel the tyres are. And this is a very, very wide Ford Falcon here in the Bikeoff Aussie Mail machine. Up in 12th, Jonathan Bikeoff himself. Now looking in the mirrors at what Liam Jacobs is doing with the slipstream. Now looking to the inside, no. Looking to bump down the straight. He wants to get up to that leading battle. If something kicks off up front, Jacobs wants to be there as he dives down the inside at the chase, but he goes too deep. He locks up. He's in the grass, and from moving forward one spot, he ends up losing 2, losing 3.
Yeah, there's another pack of cars that are coming. He's got that slowdown now to serve, and he'll try and find himself back into the rhythm. I think that's Petr Pavlovich that's just come through right there. Davis got a spot on this lap. Now he's got 2 as he gets down to Murray's corner. But look at them all light up deep in the pack.
What's down in the traction zone there? 2 cars nearly looping it around. Nick Parker goes for the full rotation. Some of that spec as he gets going, but some of the other cars there just not getting tidily away. This looks like it could be terminal for some of these drivers as well.
Yeah, remember, pit lane closed, ladies and gentlemen. So those cars, by entering the lane, they've effectively said, yep, my race is over. This thing is too damaged to drive. We've got to try and drive it as deep as we possibly can. How's the response from Gray this time? Again, looks a little bit unsettled. That car drove it in deep on the rears, walking all over the track. Davis, remember, grabbed that spot away, and now he's back behind Daniel Stevens, so he's really not happy about that. And again, it all stems back to, we talked in the GT4 race, it's about how you set yourself up for all these overtakes. Yeah, sure, you can get it all done, you can put the car in all the right spots, but at the moment, if you're not in the right spots, you're not close enough at the critical areas of this track to get it done, then you're not going to get that pass done. At the same time, it's about getting yourself set up for turn one correctly. Davis didn't do that, and now he's stuck back here in all the garbage with all the squabbling going on, and he's got to try and get his head down. It's going to be a tough race for Davis.
These drivers just at the tail end of the top 10 trying to hold on to the coattails as well. I saw Craig Mason, or was it Stephen Varga, glance the wall and kick up some dust across the top of the mountain, just trying to follow as closely as possible, use all the road. And sometimes when you're trying to do both of those things, you might end up just tagging the wall a little bit, George Russell. So Anderson out to more than a 1 second lead behind them. Nothing to separate these beautiful looking throwback machines.
How good is it to see the old HRT liveries out and in force, and particularly at the front end of the field? Gray thinks he's a little bit faster than Gilbert. Yeah,
he parks Dylan Gray out wide. He gives him one car width out there, holds on to the apex. Very, very clever stuff. What a lockup, what a drift. Henry King, 90 degrees to the direction to travel through turn one. Going to get swallowed up by the cars behind, but he manages to block him out a little bit on the exit. They're not going to be happy. King holds on a fifth. It's Haywood and Mason who thought they were going to get a piece of him and just couldn't in the end as they go up Mountain Straight. Those tyres are going to be in a rough place for King though.
Yeah, he's got to settle it down. I think he might have plucked a gear, grabbed a little bit of the grass. One of those two sorts of things is generally what's going to send a car out and sideways like that. But have a look at James Anderson. Gray's made a mistake, then ended up a part of that. Now he's fallen off the back end of things. So this has allowed Dion de Graaf to come under a little bit of pressure from Aaron Gilbert. But in the meantime, side by side at the cutting, somebody's got to yield here, boys. You're not going to make all the way across the top side by side.
And they won't. In the wall hard for Craig Mason. He wanted a car width around the outside and he gets absolutely drilled in one of the blind spots of the racetrack. The track's not quite locked. Now it is. That car has gone to a different planet. It keeps going on. 5, 10, 8, 20 damaged cars. I don't know, but one of them is not in this world anymore.
Yellow flags. When you see a yellow flag, oh, it's another one! No! When you see a yellow flag at the mountain, boys, you've got to lift off. You cannot fly in there at that sort of a speed. Generally, when you see a yellow flag at the mountain, it's going to trigger a safety car. So for those guys that are deeper in the pack, the instant you see any flash of a local yellow, you've got to back it up. You've got to dial it down. The risk when you pile in there, it's too great. And there's been a lot of cars there that have taken such a high level of risk.
We saw Mason get shuffled out into the wall. He ended up backwards. It's Shane Bowen that's driven head on into him, immediately blown the motor, disabled the car, and Bowen's ended up sideways, blind across the top of the crest. Here's how it starts. That's a massive impact all by its own. Here comes Bowen, drills him, ends up sideways. The track is blocked, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 cars all drive into him. How about 5? Can we get cheaper by the dozen mayhaps here? And the track is near enough to lock at that point.
Why are they driving in there at that pace? Like, for Craig Mason, why did he keep it in there? He was clearly not alongside. He was the secondary car. The road was always, he was always going to run out of road there. It sort of harkens back. Was it Bathurst 12 hour this year? Actually, I think it might have been the support categories from the Bathurst 1000 last year. And when just about every race had a safety car in it, because guys were just going, oh, I'm in a Porsche Cup car. We've got 12 laps to go racing. Oh, it's lap 3. I better send it in there. We're side by side heading through under the grate. This is going to be a vision point.
This is the Pavlovich on board. Bang. And then we're looking for who's got some snags on the Barbie. Can I dip into your esky? Because that's where we're heading with that one. Even if you back off the pace 20%, you back it off the half speed.
Forget
you've
that.
Still got no time to react, nowhere to go.
60%. Why you want it at 80? I mean, yeah. The problem for, I think, Pavlovich is that everything's just sort of unfolded, and he's arrived that he might have gotten a fraction of warning. He would have had next to no warning.
It at half speed.
Wow.
And had no time to react if we didn't already know.
But it's the cars that are in behind him. How's the safety car queue going to get through here? This will be interesting. Oh, it won't.
Safety car. Hopefully it's become almost a recovery vehicle. There might actually be some room around the other side, to be honest, but everyone's following the train. Is anyone gonna...
This would be a red flag situation in real life, and indeed the cars are backing up to that point. And the problem is, from the 7 cars' perspective from Shane Bond, like you said, he's got a blown motor. There's nothing he can do. Unique experiences at Bathurst? Chalk this one up.
I think there might be a car with the other side, but no one's going there. But, seriously. Come on. Oh, Parker? Okay, good.
There we go. They've just been given permission. Yeah. Normally in real life, that'd just be a straight up red flag. My word. And then a brush with the inside barrier down at the dipper. That's ripped a part of the car off. That's an unforced error from Dion de Graaf.
Don't look good, but at the speed of it, are you actually going to have any real aerodynamic or suspension damage, which I think are your 2 biggest concerns at this point? So, safety car is out of here. That Porsche picks up some pace, and James Anderson, this is going to be his first time at the front of the field restarting this race. Dion de Graaf, Aaron Gilbert, Dylan Gray, Henry King, the cars in behind him. Is he going to restart this in a different fashion than we saw from Dylan Gray?
Yeah, I think this will be an opportunity for him. I think that last phase of the race, he was starting to fall back a little bit because he just overdriven that car. He's got an opportunity to cool the tyres off, refocus him. I think the biggest thing, like we've said, is mentally, once he's unstuck, it's very, very difficult for him to get stuck back into things. So they've got an opportunity here. This is the best possible thing that could have happened. Settle him down, get him pointed in the right direction yet again, and this may present an opportunity. But for the guys that are behind, for Dion de Graaf, this is a great opportunity for him to go. If he can get ahead of James Anderson here, Anderson will be in trouble. Anderson was setting sail on his own, but the instant some pressures apply, we haven't seen that to James Anderson yet. So this will be an interesting one from James's perspective.
Speak for no one but myself. I reckon I could go for a whopper right about now, looking at James Anderson at the front of the field. 10 more laps to go. Oh, and he's gone earlier. We're going to string the field out a little bit before the final corner, hoping that makes the race leader less vulnerable when we get up to Griffin's Bend. The scene of some of the action, some of the passing on the previous restart definitely strings out first, second, third. Good jump from James Anderson. What's happening in the rest of the field? Because we've lost almost 10 cars. This doesn't look anywhere near as busy as the last restart.
Yeah, well, this time by they're going to be a lot more spread out, a lot less cars, and some cars deeper in the pack with some engine damage. So they're looking to just get through the race at this point in time, get some time, and have a look at Gray already trying to assault Aaron Gilbert. Maybe this will open up an opportunity when they get to the cutting.
Gilbert drove defensive up the mountain, make sure he got to that correct line. Now he can park inside. You're not going to get around anyone at the cutting here. The inside line's the only place you could possibly be so brave, and even then, might give you some flashbacks as well. Seen that in a highlight or two. James Anderson still leading us. First and second got away. And third place here is where it's all happening. They're slipping, they're sliding, they're starting to wear out their tyres. I reckon even at this point in the race, track still toasty. Sun is still out. Beautiful Bathurst afternoon.
Yeah, well, remember, these are 2002 liveries, so it's still 3 years before Ambrose and Murphy would come together at the cutting. So for these guys, maybe they're trying to get it a little bit earlier in terms of these liveries. It's one of those cultural moments. Every corner around here oozes with that little bit of personality, oozes with a moment that we can remember. Chaz Mostert heavily in the barriers down there. He was in hospital for a couple of weeks after that, getting everything repaired. Down here at the chase, who can forget Jamie Whincup running out of fuel on the last lap of the race and slipping down, crawling across the start-finish line. Who is going to replicate one of those moments?
Side could make their own moment here. King was driving defensively earlier, but what about a move late down the inside? Just ease off the brake a little bit and bring the pressure back up. Try to get down the inside, lock up a tyre, and then push King off the road. And now the King will get dethroned by a couple more drivers.
Yeah, now he's just going to start getting eaten up. And have a look at Tim Nicol, who's going to try and use the opportunity to get down the inside here. So you get out of rhythm once, get out of rhythm twice, and all of a sudden you're sinking like a ship. There's some damage to that car there for Henry Kings as well. Got to find that rhythm back here, Dave.
try to fight this one back. He'll hold the inside, force the driver around the outside. Square exit, gets the throttle, progressing well for King as well in his battle against Tim Nicol. But Nicol, with less damage, will also have the inside at Griffin's Bend. That's what's critical. You need that camber, you need that grip at the inside of forwards, and that's the best positioning, and that confidence that you know you're going to have more grip lets you brake later as well, because look at this. On the way in, plenty of speed for King, but it just washes out. The tail kicks out from him, and he is going to lose some spots. 8 versus 888 was it there? No, 8 versus 8, 6-8 between Varga and Haywood.
Yeah, I was just looking at that battle, and it looks like that Matt Haywood's just starting to find some pace in this car. Varga's under assault now. He's got a lot of problems coming his way from that Simlax entry.
And these are dropping away from the top 4. Oh no! Big damage for Stephen Adams. Is that car even going to be able to carry on? That's been the most dramatic part of the track in this category of race cars. You've got so much power, so little grip. What's easy, flat out, or very balanced in some other cars. In these, you're driving every meter of the track, and that car is toast. It's going nowhere.
Yeah, they're having a look at it at the moment. Safety car not yet called, but in the meantime James Anderson's just sort of running away a little bit with this one. Gonna get deployed, and we're gonna get frozen up again. Left to the left side of the track, right side of the track, right side of the track, right side of the track, and a nice little grind to finish it off.
The steering was cactus early from one of those hits, so we get the safety car for a 3rd time. Dare I say, full Super 2, but we'll take a look at it. There's already some damage there. The car doesn't want to turn right. That's the initial problem. I think the steering, the suspension is already broken in a way that won't let the car turn right. Has he done that at the cutting? Or has he done that at the exit of Griffin's Bend? Because if he'd done it any earlier, then he wouldn't have made Griffin's Bend.
Well, he's also broken the drive shaft at the tail end of that thing as well. So we'll go back under safety car, we'll get an opportunity to sort of have a look at it. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe it's left-hand side of the wall as he's come off of Griffin's. Maybe not necessarily the cutting, because generally at the cutting you're not going to whack it unless you've really turned in at the cutting. The downside, though, you know, it could be the cutting, because that'll be the first opportunity to kink back to the right to test the car out, test if the steering's okay.
Before the replay, I haven't seen it. But I reckon he's clipped the inside of the cutting. That's why I'm putting my money there.
I'll take Griffin's. I broke a few V8 supercars on the wall at the exit of Griffin's in prep up for the Bathurst 1000.
Okay, already damage on the front left, but there's no damage on the rear left yet that there was at the time of the later incident. Plenty of space all to himself at the moment towards Griffin's Bend, and to make me a fool. No,
I was about to say.
No,
he's caught the wall there.
Griffin's at the moment. So how about here cutting? Nothing on the way in.
Oh, it's already done. It's already done. He just clipped the wall at the exit of Griffin's. Just, but it was enough to kick that tyre out.
Car gets airborne there as well. Folds over its own tyre on the left-hand side, and then clips the wall. Gets all 4 up in the air. Not the biggest leap we've seen from a supercar there just yet. But there you go. This is the view from behind.
Oh.
Lightning McQueen, he hasn't jumped.
Okay.
Not very good shower.
Whether or not it was carrying earlier damage and that's what's caused it to go. Oh, he got right next to it.
Tough to spot exactly where it went wrong, but a couple hits, it all starts to add up. And he's not the only slightly beaten car through the field. You can see some for second place, Dion DeGraaf. See a bit further behind. Here we go.
Oh. The hits don't stop coming and they don't stop coming.
No, but he was back to the ground, but he didn't hit the ground running.
I was going to say he bent the frame and he hit the ground running, but yeah, that works.
On Conrod Straight again at safety car speed. The safety car's pulled away. Second restart for James Anderson. Went early on the first one. It worked out for him, but the way these restarts go, if you do the same thing twice, the guy behind you will be privy to it. It's a little bit of a game of rock, paper, scissors, a little bit of a bluff here, potentially, what you do and how you restart this race.
And now he's got mindset. Now he's in control of things. Dion de Graaf was looking a little bit pacey. He was a little bit closer on that run. But remember, we've only had 2 short runs, tire heat cycles, and then they've cooled off a little bit, heated them up again, cooled them off a little bit. What has he got for us this time?
You ever leave cheese out of the fridge and then you put it back in and it's not quite the same again? I don't know. Tires are a bit like that. There's magic to them. Centuries of trying to study tires, and we're still learning new things about them, how to treat them, their construction, etc. James Anderson gets past racing once again. 7 to go. Now he crosses the line, brings the field with him. Potentially a chance this ends up going a little closer to time certain with the number of safety cars that we've had. But there's only 16 cars left out on track. Fewer cars to cause incidents from here on out. Is it time? Is it laps? Only time or laps will tell.
Yeah, and Aaron Gilbert's a little bit closer this time. Gilbert had pace at the tail end of that last run as well, so he was starting to come back towards Dion de Graaf. Dion will 100% get the elbows out here. This is about to become one of the widest forwards you've ever come across.
So on board with that third place car briefly, we head up to the cutting. Got to slow it down, need a bit of a rear bias, brake balance through there. And in front, big stop at the end of the chase as well. He's trying to keep up with de Graaf. De Graaf doesn't want to get dropped by Anderson off this race start. Dylan de Grey, after a fantastic qualifying performance, once he got mugged for the race lead, just hasn't quite looked like he's been as confident here. You can see the gap that he's got to the top 3 and the pressure that Varga here in 5th is putting on him. But this is where the most action is, from 4th all the way through this part of the field. They're oh so close, and one mistake could be big for any of them.
And have a think for Varga. He's done phenomenal. Given the chaos that's been around him, he's up 6 spots from where he started. He was a little bit out of control in the braking zone there as they got down towards the cutting. But he started 11th, so he started outside that top 10. He's running in 5th. This is a phenomenal drive for him. And remember, one of those guys that we were talking about didn't settle themselves in terms of qualifying, didn't get a clean lap. I think Steven Varga was one of those.
Move on for second. Aaron Gilbert, he's got to run down the inside on Dion de Graaf, and he's going to go up into second as they glide through the chase, 290 k's an hour. Massive stop. James Anderson has a 1.2 second lead, but it's now Aaron Gilbert in second with the job of pursuing him. That clean looking Holden, less damage on it, and it's flying along de Graaf. Is he looking to fight back, or is he almost trying to cover off Dylan Gray? Gilbert slides a little bit off the final corner. I think he's gone and grabbed that now. I'm starting to see time certain as a possibility, but I think we need another flying lap after the safety car for the computer to really start to figure it out.
I think we're going to be right on the limit. I think we'll get it in because the last lap will fly, remember, with about a minute or so on the timing. So I think we'll get all 6 laps of this one in. We're going to be right on that limit, though, for the time certainty, and have a look at battles starting to evolve as drivers sort of look at the timings and go, yeah, you know what, we've got to get an elbow on, we've got to get out here. Steven Varga got great traction off of Griffin's Bend that time. He's going to be right there under Dylan Gray. Gray's deep at the cutting.
Front lockup as well pushes him a tiny bit wide. De Graaf's got no rear tyres. He lit them up in a big slide, trying to get traction going up the hill. So they're all on the limit of their tyre grip now in this race, all on the limit. And they've got to keep one thing in mind. This isn't the last race of the weekend for our Retro V8 Sports. After SCOPS 1000 qualifying, these guys are back on track again, and race 2, they're going to line up how they finished in this one. The drivers with the DNF are going to have a big job in race number 2. You don't want to join them if you're these guys in the top 10.
Yeah, and that'll be critical because remember the number of cars that have been relatively quick and pacey, potentially thinking they've got a shot over the top 10. They're going to be starting from the rear end of things just because of where they were in the pack. Gray's struggling. Remember, we saw this car dancing all over the place in those first sort of 2 laps before that first safety car. All that rear tyre grip, everything that he burned off then, he got a breath of fresh air, he settled it back down, but it doesn't matter. Those tyres are never going to be just quite as good, and everyone else has been a lot kinder to their tyres. Dylan Gray, tyre whisperer, he's got to work on that.
Beautiful Bathurst afternoon with that track starting to cool off. Sun's in the 3 p.m. position right now. Here's a view of what's going on at the Dipper. You always get a little bit of a slide as the car lands, and you want to get close as you can to that wall. Oh, you don't want to get that close. Hammer is off the road. He's against the wall. That car isn't going to get going. He's got traction. It's not in a good way, but he was already, I think, out of harm's way. Now he drives off the chase with big damage on his car. James Anderson, 1.7 second lead. This is how Hanma ended up here. Down the inside of him on the chase. The Castrol Ratu car gets up on the curb. Doesn't quite know what's going on with that car in the air, and unfortunately it clips Hanma, who did everything right. No driver really at fault in that one. And the tyres going off for a lot of these guys. They got a massive handful, and we're now over a second slower than what the pole time was as well. Despite the track starting to grip up, you love that aspect to these racing cars.
Yeah, that's the big thing, isn't it? Wiggle that rear end of the car around too much in the opening, and you're going to really struggle through this part of the race. Anderson's got pace now, set the fastest lap of the race, 2:05.4, and has skipped clear. He's got 2 seconds worth of margin. De Graaf is coming back a little bit at Aaron Gilbert, and I tell you what, Matt Haywood in that Pertec liveried car has got speed on Varga. He is starting to come back at Varga, and quite quickly. Varga has not had a clean exit. I think it was off of Hell Corner. It was really, really slow. So all of a sudden, Haywood's got some pace, and don't count Tim Nicol out of this battle either.
The big challenge, the real skill with these cars is that throttle pedal. It's not an on-off button. You've got to treat it like a slider. You've got to go from nothing, bring it up as quickly as you can without lighting up those rear tires, without getting too much slide, too much heat in. Matt Haywood, he's got oodles of straight line speed, past 260, into top gear, pulling out of the slipstream, 270, 280, towards the chase, the commitment point. You know you've got your nose in front, so you go round the outside if you're Matt Haywood. You try to outbrake Varga. You ride all the way up against the curb, but you can't squeeze Varga off because he'll demand some track and he'll send you out into the wall.
And all of that kicked off at the apex of the chase. That, even though the contact and everything that finished him off was down deeper, Varga come across. He just pinched him slightly. They rubbed, got Varga a little bit unsettled. He had to have a couple goes at the throttle pedal then. And then he thought, well, I think I've demanded a little bit more room now when we get to turn number 22. And Haywood is really not happy about that one.
But he has got the car rolling again. Here's how it starts. He's down the inside. He gets given space. He rides up on the curb. He pushes Varga halfway off the track. Varga says, I'm coming back onto the track. I'm holding the inside. And that movement back sent Haywood off the road. I don't really blame Varga, though.
No.
I mean, it's racing these cars at the chase. Someone's got to give. And give and take happens. Sent Haywood out towards the wall. 4 laps to go in this race. James Anderson's hitting his stride at the perfect time with the fastest lap of the race, with a 3-second race lead ahead of Aaron Gilbert, De Graaf, and Dylan Gray fighting it out. This is what happened between Haywood and Varga fighting it out.
Did you see there was a little bit of contact which just barely upset Varga, and it meant he had to go a lot deeper, and it kicked Haywood back towards the inside. It was just the tiniest little bit of touches, but it was at the critical moment of the corner where they had to turn in, and that's what's upset both of them. It sent Haywood further into the inside because he's got a rub. So 2 things happen right there. Unsettles the car. He's had to turn into the corner. And number 2, psychologically, he's gone, Varga's right there. I've got no more room. And he's turned himself into the corner a little bit more aggressively. Bounces over the curb, and everything that happens after that's just, that's where it's all done and dusted, really.
With Gilbert and De Graaf, they're now 3.5 seconds behind your race leader, James Anderson. De Graaf wants that second place back. The slipstream's really good for his Ford Falcon to have a look down the inside of the chase, but he's not close enough. In clean air though, that damage, I think doing him some aero damage, he's been off the track, he's dirtied up those tyres. Now it's Gray's chance to try to fight back, looking to the outside, looking down the inside, gonna put the nose there and gonna deserve a little bit of space, but gets squeezed up on the curve as the best Falcons battle it out for the final step in the podium in race 1 of 2 for today's action in the V8SCOPS supports our retro V8.
That was late and that was aggressive for Dion De Graaf. I wouldn't be happy about that one if I was Dylan Gray, but at the same time, no contact made, and that means you got to crack on with your racing. So he sensed that there was an opportunity, that there was indeed a weakness. Have a look at these guys that'll squabble deeper down the pack. Slater and Mahoney going toe-to-toe, hammer and tong, nothing in it. So it's still on for a podium in race number 1.
Momentum to the Castrol livery car, but it's around the outside for Griffin's Bend. You need that racing line. He has to sit behind for the moment, and it looks like his front right tyre is not in a great place either. It's exposed, and now he's feeling exposed as well, as the car won't turn in how he'd like. He starts to drop back towards his teammate, who has suspiciously similar damage as well. Now, something's not quite right with the steering in that car, I feel, in the 39? I'm going to say 39. It's 36 with Joe Mahoney. Sean Slater, his teammate, behind in the 39.
And De Graaf's really starting to struggle now, but so's Gray back up at the front end of things. So these guys have at least settled themselves out, and have a look at the margin that he's fallen back. We're going to have 3 more bites at the cherry down at the chase, but after that it'll be 2 to go for these guys. And if you've got any speed, you need to display it right now. And have a look at both of them wiggling all around in the braking zone. Who's got it? Well, in the meantime, it's James Anderson, 4 seconds clear. He has settled into this race, and all the squabbling behind, he's happy about that.
Yeah, I wonder what this lap time might look like. The fuel is definitely coming down. You burn plenty of it in these long, full throttle blasts up and down the mountain. And get a little bit of air across the mountain that is that curb on the way into the chase of Dylan Gray. His car still looks in better shape. He is a move and a half. Hello. That's good. Not bad from Liam Jacobs to get up into 7th. I thought he was in way too hot there. But he still arrived, made the corner. It doesn't look like Henry King could do anything about it.
Yeah, really, really good job with that one, and that'll give them both some opportunities when they get down the end here. 2 to go. So now it's all on hammer and tong for these last podium positions, and have a look at the car stepping sideways from Gray. These cars back then had a little bit less grip than the Gen 2 supercars of last year certainly had, and now he's got to run. This will be the opportunity. De Graaf's going to defend it, and why wouldn't you this late?
No slipstream for De Graaf. He really starts losing momentum once you get to the top of 5th gear into 6th gear, but the inside is where you've got to be. And no matter how much overlap the other driver's got, the inside has way, way more grip through Griffin's Bend. De Graaf holds on to 3rd. Hey, King looks like he's gotten back in front of Liam Jacobs. Retaliation for the big move, but that's way out sideways in the cutting for King. And they'll fight. They'll swap once again. Jacobs back into 7th. King back into 8th like a yo-yo.
Yeah, it's still not decided up in front. James Anderson's got 1.5 laps worth. He's got 4.5 seconds in behind him. He's in cruise control, and this screams trouble for everyone for race number 2 later on. They've got to find a way to either work together better, look after their tyres better. That's the change. They'll have an hour and a half to think about things, an hour and a half's worth of change. The server's going to cool down a whole bunch. The tyres won't be as big of a factor back there. And I tell you what, Dylan Gray just had a big old moment. There's a car park. Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens is going nowhere down Mount Conrod Straight. He's stuck. We've got 2 laps to go. What's going to happen with Stevens in that position? The leaders are just passing him now. Here goes James Anderson. Here goes Aaron Gilbert. Here goes Dion De Graaf with Gray still just in behind. He might get away with it from where he was parked and how late in the race it is.
Aaron, yeah, he did. He's already told. They didn't want another safety car at the end of the race. They've only got 1 more lap left to go. So they said, yep, just tow that one back to pit lane. We're on with the last couple laps of the race, and we've got a fight on our hands. And thank you to Race Control for letting that happen.
Now, 6.2 kilometers left to go for James Anderson. He starts lap 18. We're going the full distance in the supports. Retro V8s for the V8SCOPS Bathurst 1000. Qualifying for the main game coming up next. After that, race 2 for these guys, and then main game shootout. The mountain has so much more still to offer us this weekend ahead of 1,000 kilometers tomorrow. Is there action still to happen for the podium here?
This is about the only battle that we've really got on the rest of the lap. Just about everyone else has spread themselves out. So this is for the minor placings on the podium. This is important. Gray's right there. He's looked quick, and now he's had a huge moment on the run up to the cutting. Well, that'll throw that one away.
Locked the rears, locked the front, slid sideways in a flat slide through the cutting, managed to avoid any big damage, but that was his chance, his shot, and he's hurt those tyres. He's dropped back from the podium, and we ride on board with the driver behind, Stephen Varga, now with some confidence, having seen that, I think maybe I can attack the 4th place. Good points, and then also a good starting position for the next race. 18 laps coming up tonight around the mountain in some different conditions. Ray still sliding it down the mountain like a ski slalom course here. Tail out, pizza, French fry towards the elbow there. His drive off is going to be so critical. James Anderson's now out to a 5-second lead. He's sailing home with just a couple corners to go to try to take a V8 race victory around the mountain. Always something to treasure. The positions behind him, though, are still up in the air between Gilbert, between DeGraff. Dylan Gray now looking like he had good straight line speed compared to Stephen Varga. I wonder if any of these guys might have short field and need to save, even despite the safety cars. All up across the curbs and sideways for 4th and 5th. James Anderson, the checkered flag for him. A race winner after 18 laps. Gilbert, DeGraff, the podium. Gray holding on to his course. Maybe not what he wanted from the podium, but there are a whole handful of damaged cars back in the paddock who'd be jealous of a 4th place.
Yeah, and think about the number of cars that didn't even finish that race as well. That's a big part of that one. The Castro boys will get home together, and they managed to do real well at the back end of that one. But for a lot of drivers, they'll be sitting back there and going, well, we just ruined so many safety cars mean that we lost, 6 laps worth of racing action? We broke the race up. That would have been interesting for that one to go the full distance.
Everyone's taken the checkered flag after 18 laps of V8SCOPS supports on the mountain. James Anderson, he raced his way to the lead, and then after that, no safety car could stop him. He was in perfect form, right on song, taking a 5.5 second win from Aaron Gilbert. Dion DeGraff remaining on the podium. Dylan Gray, some little mistakes, some tyre life costing him potentially as he finished in 4th ahead of Varga. Tim Nicol, Liam Jacobs, Henry King, Gavin Cox, and Joe Mahoney, the top 10. Behind was Sean Slater, Matt Hayward, Nick Parker, and Tyson Hanmer. Despite his adventures and some contact with the walls, he was the last car on the lead lap in 14th. He saw the finish, but Dan Stevens, Scott Stevens, Stephen Adams for a triple Stephen attack, and Jamie Davis, Jonathan Bykoff, Peter Pavlovich, all retirements here. They're going to start deep in the field when race number 2 comes around for this support category. 21st looked like it was Shane Bowen from Craig Mason, Joshua King there in 23rd from Lachlan Horan, Stead Miller. Ben Christensen's the safety car driver, but he still did more laps than Danny Vassell, Colin Bruns, or Lindsay Hobbs.
Mate, what a race number 2. That was phenomenal. And race 1 of the third of the support categories, and they've got one more race to go. We'll be restarting the stream in a few moments, ladies and gents, and then we'll be coming to you live for qualifying from V8 SCOPS from the mountain. Bathurst 1000 coming all your way in just a few moments.